Hello and welcome to Thriving 101, Designing a Fulfilling Life and Career. This is the course we all needed when we were younger, but likely it wasn't offered or we didn't get to take it. Have you ever noticed there really aren't a lot of people thriving in life? Some research conducted by the Gallup organization shows less than 10% of the world's population is thriving. And that's unfortunate, because additional studies demonstrate that thriving is not only valuable because you get to experience more joy and other positive emotions when you're thriving, but also because your well-being has a significant impact on so many other aspects of your life, several of which directly benefit other people, which makes investing in your own well-being far from a selfish act. It's like what Robert Louis Stevenson said: "There is no duty we so much underrate as the duty of being happy. By being happy, we sow anonymous benefits upon the world." According to the research, compared to people with low levels of well-being, individuals with higher levels of well-being perform better at work, have more satisfying relationships, are more cooperative, have stronger immune systems, have better physical health, live longer, have reduced cardiovascular mortality, have fewer sleep problems, have lower levels of burnout, and have greater self-control. As you can see, by thriving, you can contribute more to the world and those around you, while simultaneously accomplishing more of your other goals in life. I think the author, researcher, and psychologist Sean A. Core stated it best when he said, "Happiness fuels success, not the other way around." So if you're like me, you're probably curious, why aren't more people thriving? And most importantly, how can I become one of those flourishing individuals? My name is Jordan Manis, and I'm a certified life coach, and I currently serve as the Career Advising Specialist for the Division of Continuing Education at the University of Colorado, Boulder. Previously, I spent over 15 years working as a career coach at UCLA. That question, why aren't more people thriving in life, has driven me throughout my professional career. It's been a great joy to study and apply what the science is telling us about achieving more fulfillment and happiness in life, and then sharing those messages in clear and simple ways with thousands of individuals. There's no question that the information out there on what it takes to thrive in life can be overwhelming and confusing. So many people are searching for a better way of living, a more fulfilling existence, but simply don't know where to start. That's why I designed this course, to help you systematically learn and apply the most common themes about thriving in life and your career. This course is designed to be practical and enjoyable. And it's truly for anyone looking to make a change in their life, big or small, in order to feel more engaged and fulfilled. And for those considering a career change, this course can help you determine if making a change to that area of your life is really the optimal place to start, or if there are other adjustments that could be addressed first in order to greatly improve your levels of fulfillment in life. We'll also dive into the process of choosing a career well aligned with your true self. And a quick disclaimer. Although anyone can take and apply many of the messages in this course to enhance their overall well-being, this course is not meant to replace additional professional support, especially if you are dealing with significant mental health issues. One last note. Like many things in life, the more you put into this course, the more you're going to get out of it. So, we encourage you to dive deep into the material and do the exercises. And after completing this course, you'll take the reins as the designer of your life and career. Because if you don't design your life and career, someone else will. And I'm guessing that's not a chance you're willing to take. So let's take a quick peek ahead. Over the next several weeks, we'll define what it means to be thriving in life. And you'll understand the research-based components for flourishing in life and for elevating your own well-being. We'll discuss why so many people seem to be putting their efforts into areas that aren't really effective in enhancing their happiness. We'll also talk more about many of the hidden benefits of flourishing. We'll point out the 5 areas of life that lead to thriving and the significant effect career has on the other 4 elements. And we'll discuss how to find a career that is meaningful and fulfilling to you by using the design thinking process. I'm really looking forward to our journey together, and I hope you are too. And remember, it really doesn't matter where you're starting from. As English novelist and poet George Eliot once said, "It's never too late to be what you might have been." Before moving forward, please take a few moments to write about what drew you to this course and what you're most looking forward to learning about. So as we get started in this course, we need to answer a very important question. What does it mean to be thriving in life? Lots of people have different definitions. And by the way, you'll notice as we talk about our goals in this course, we're intentionally using the words thriving, flourishing, or well-being rather than the term happiness. We do this because happiness can often fluctuate daily or even hourly in a normally functioning human being. But one can still be thriving even when experiencing the normal spectrum of emotions most people go through in a typical week. So if thriving is not just solely experiencing positive emotions, what is it? Sonia Lyubomirsky, the author of The How of Happiness, A New Approach to Getting the Life You Want, talks of the experience of joy, contentment, or positive well-being combined with a sense that one's life is good, meaningful, and worthwhile. And as Yale professor Dr. Laurie Santos stated on the podcast Next Question with Katie Couric, social scientists tend to think of happiness as being happy in your life and being happy with your life. So if we dissect both those definitions, essentially, well-being is a combination of the emotions one is experiencing plus the thoughts one has about their life. That's a good starting point, but the research helps us dig even deeper. Ready? Let's go. From my vantage point, I think it's helpful to summarize all the findings about what it means to be thriving into 2 big categories. I call it living in HD. H stands for what we have in life. In other words, as we step back and assess the big critical areas of our lives, how do we feel about what we've created? Are these authentically aligned with who we are? Have we ignored any key areas? More on this in a minute. The D in living in HD stands for what we are doing in life. More specifically, what you do with your mind and what you do with your time. In other words, what intentional thoughts and actions do you engage in regularly? Let me explain all this a bit further. When it comes to evaluating the life you have, the research shows there are 5 key aspects we must look at. Which areas? For the answer, we can look to a book entitled Well-Being: The 5 Essential Elements by Tom Rath and Jim Harder. Calling on the work of the Gallup organization, the book points to a comprehensive study of people in more than 150 countries, and the study revealed 5 universal, interconnected elements that shape our lives: social well-being, financial well-being, physical or health well-being, community well-being, and career well-being. In other words, having healthy levels of success in these 5 big bucket areas of life leads to thriving. It's also been shown that career has the biggest impact on all the rest. So investing significant time and effort into finding a well-aligned career can be extremely worthwhile. But more on that later in the course. And as we stated before, It was determined that less than 10% of the world's population is thriving in all 5 areas. But as a starting point for your life, it's helpful to examine if you have well-being in these 5 areas. And if not, see which bucket areas need the most attention. But even if you have those 5 areas relatively filled up, in order to flourish, you must examine what you do on a regular or daily basis. As we said, it's important what you do with your mind and your time. What thoughts do you have regularly, and what actions do you take regularly? What are your habitual thoughts and actions? The answer to those questions can help you better understand your current state of flourishing. When it comes to your thoughts, if you want to be thriving, the science says do think in a particular way about your past, present, and future. Do use the power of gratitude and forgiveness as you think about your life. Do savor and be mindful in the present moment. Do look optimistically about your future. More on all of this later in the course. And just as important, do be strategic with how you spend your time. Martin Seligman, often called the father of positive psychology, and the author of the book Flourish, A Visionary New Understanding of Happiness and Well-Being, recommends focusing your time in 5 key areas that boost well-being. All of these are measurable and teachable. Do things that give you positive emotions. Do get fully engaged in your tasks and activities. Do invest in your most important relationships. Do pursue things that make your life feel meaningful. And do accomplish goals and set new ones. More on all of this soon. So in summary, someone who is thriving has an eye on the most important bucket areas of their life and works to keep them filled up, or at least not on empty. They also do think in ways that optimally serve them, and they do invest their time in key activities and pursuits that lead to flourishing. And there is a lot they do not do. And we'll discuss that topic too in this course. As you can see, thriving is a practice and takes intentional focus and effort. As Michael Beckwith, founder of the Agape Center in Los Angeles, says, we have an intention deficit disorder. So, what is your intention? Being intentional with our thoughts and actions in the life we are building is the first step. We need to focus more on what we do want rather than what we don't want. And we need to stop sleepwalking through life. But thriving is also a skill one can get better at. And best of all, thriving can become a habit. And remember, Tal Ben-Shahar, the author of the book Happier, Learn the Secrets to Daily Joy and Lasting Fulfillment, said, attaining lasting happiness requires that we enjoy the journey on our way towards a destination we deem valuable. Happiness is not about making it to the peak of the mountain, nor is it about climbing aimlessly around the mountain. Happiness is the experience of climbing towards the peak. In other words, making progress towards flourishing more and more each year is a very fulfilling journey. And thriving is not necessarily a destination, but a way of existing. And personally, I found that as you exist in this way, your confidence starts to grow. Your courage to be yourself expands. Anxiousness and anger can decrease. Your motivation rises. A sense of direction and connection emerges. And a genuine happiness and peacefulness is experienced much more frequently. Now, don't worry if you're feeling overwhelmed. We'll break down each of these components of thriving into digestible nuggets as we move through this course. And I believe you'll start to view thriving in life and your career as a skill, one that can be developed by diligently implementing the knowledge we'll share in this course. Think of thriving as a daily practice that requires continuous attention and effort to build healthy habits that serve you. However, the more intentionally you focus on flourishing, the easier it can become. It's very much like building a muscle. You can greatly increase your strength by slowly and diligently training and exercising. So, Are you ready to get started? Before diving further into the components of flourishing, it can be helpful to take stock of where you currently stand. There are a variety of self-assessments you can take. We've listed 2 assessments for you. You can choose to take one or both. Answer as honestly as possible and resist the temptation to judge yourself for where you are now. You're simply trying to get an understanding of what level of thriving you are currently functioning at, and then after this course, and after you've started to apply the knowledge you've obtained, you are welcome to go back and take the assessment again to see the progress you're making. The late Ed Diener was a professor and psychologist who led a team who created the flourishing scale, which is one of the assessments you can take. The other assessment comes from Martin Seligman, the author of Flourish, a visionary new understanding of happiness and well-being. It's called the PERMA assessment. Remember, as I previously stated, taking one of these assessments is meant to simply give you a glimpse of where you are starting from. Do your best not to judge yourself or compare yourself to others. This is simply your starting point, and as time goes by and you start to apply some of the teachings of this course, you can retake these assessments to get a sense of your progress. In the next module, we'll take a much closer look at what leads to thriving and how much is really under your control. We'll focus in on something called your happiness set point, and most importantly, how you can raise it. Over the next few days, start to notice people you see who appear to be thriving. Get curious about how they're doing it, what habits they own, what their approach to life is. If appropriate, ask them about what they've found helpful in enhancing their own well-being. You can also ask others about what they've learned about well-being and what's been effective in leading a more fulfilling life. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Learn from the mistakes of others. You can't live long enough to make them all yourself." We'll see you soon. Welcome back. In this module, we'll introduce the concept of a happiness set point. We'll discuss what influences each person's unique set point and uncover what one can do to raise their happiness set point. See, when discussing how one can thrive in life, 2 things must initially be addressed. First, are we all starting from the same place? Isn't it true that some people were just born happier than others? And secondly, what is truly under our control and effective in raising our overall well-being? Can we really change? We'll address both of these questions soon. So, let's start by introducing the term happiness set point. What is a happiness set point? It's a psychological term that describes our general level of happiness. Each of us has a different set point. Some have a high set point, meaning we are mostly in a higher state of happiness. Some have a low set point, meaning we are mostly in a lower state of happiness, while others fall somewhere in between. Basically, it's a certain level of happiness you tend to remain at even after certain boosts or decreases of happiness caused by various life events. More on this in a minute. According to the research of Sonia Lyubomirsky, who wrote a book called The How of Happiness, a new approach to getting the life you want, your happiness set point is primarily influenced by 3 factors. The largest influence essentially can be attributed to genetics. What percentage? Although the exact figure may vary from individual to individual, and research continues to evolve on this point, the findings have tended to settle around 50% on average. So up to about half of your happiness set point may be determined by heredity. Some folks hit the biological jackpot and came out of the womb skipping and whistling with a relatively high happiness set point. Others were more challenged in that area. But the point the researchers were making is that still leaves a fair amount of your happiness under your control. In fact, some might say 50% or so of your happiness set point is under your control. Now here's where I think it gets even more interesting. Of the 50% under your control, roughly only 10% or so of your happiness set point is determined by your life circumstances. This may be very surprising to some of you. Perhaps you've seen someone who appears to have it all, but is miserable. Or someone who appears to have very little means, but is extremely content. There are a variety of explanations for these examples. But you see, the main reason life circumstances, like a promotion, or a new car, or a new relationship, only have a relatively small impact on your level of happiness is due to a concept called hedonic adaptation, which is a fancy way of saying we simply adapt over time to the new circumstance, and it becomes our new expectation of normal. Here's kind of a silly example. Let's say you make enough money to take yourself out for a latte once a week. But then you get a promotion and you have enough extra money to take yourself out for a latte 4 times a week. But then you lose your job and find another one that pays less than you were just making, and you can only take yourself out for a latte twice a week. And now you are bummed because it's 2 less days of going out for a latte than you got accustomed to. You're not pleased that it's twice as often as back when you could only go out for a latte once a week. Instead, hedonic adaptation has occurred and you're just feeling the loss of the 2 lattes. You see, the science says that humans become insensitive to new stimuli and quickly readjust to an emotional baseline. Therefore, the stimulus needed to create an emotion, like happiness or giddiness, needs to be more intense than the last stimulus in order for someone to feel its effects. It's why the first few bites of ice cream typically give you more joy than the remaining bites. Or why when you enter a flower shop at first, you are blown away by the smell of fresh flowers, but after a few minutes, the sensation can fade. And so in life, when we change our external circumstances, we tend to quickly and consistently crave more of what we changed or something new, and never seem to quite make a substantial improvement to our happiness set point. This is true even when we have a major life event, like winning the lottery. We get an initial boost, but then we return to the approximate level of happiness we were at before the life event. The psychologist Robert Puff simplified it nicely in an article in Psychology Today. He said, quote, "Some of us have our thermostat set to happy. Some are set to depressed. Meanwhile, others are somewhere in between. When we experience a major event, say winning the lottery or becoming paralyzed, our thermostat may temporarily swing up or down, but over time, it returns to its usual setting." End quote. Of course, for those living in poverty and for those who money is a constant source of stress, enhancing their income will likely enhance their well-being. However, the research continues to show that once basic needs are taken care of, it's time affluence that really affects our happiness level. Later in the course, we'll talk more about ways we can strategically spend that extra time. Ashley Williams, the author of a recent Harvard study that discusses the money-time trade-off, says, quote, "It is worth noting that people who are struggling to make ends meet or who feel uncertain about their financial future often feel happier when they choose money over time. But most of us have at least some discretionary to spend, and for those of us that do, we might need to rethink our priorities." There is some research that challenges the assumption that hedonic adaptation is inevitable and shows that adaptation processes may vary depending on the events and individuals in question. But knowing so many of us are prone to experience it, where else, other than external circumstances, can we invest our energy in order to truly raise our happiness set point? In the next lesson, we'll dive into the remaining 40% or so that influences the setting of our happiness set point. And this piece of the pie is both effective and under your control. So we've talked about genetics and external circumstances affecting your happiness set point. But what exactly impacts the remaining 40% or so of our happiness set point? The answer is our intentional thoughts and actions, or as I stated earlier in the course, what we do regularly with our mind and our time. So, what do you do regularly with your mind and time? The good news is we can get better at paying attention to our thoughts and more strategically choosing our actions, and thus, this is a skill that can be improved, and one that can dramatically affect our happiness levels. If we don't choose to pay attention to our thoughts and more strategically choose how we spend our time, then our happiness really does become dependent entirely on our genes and our environment. And so much of that is out of our control. Flourishing in life has a lot to do with taking back a lot of that control. It's about feeling more empowered and less of a victim. So looking back at the pie chart from Sonia Lyubomirsky's The How of Happiness, our happiness set point is determined by roughly 50% genetics, 10% life circumstances, and 40% intentional thoughts and actions. It's important to note that in updated papers by the author about the percentages, she has said, quote, "The numbers were intended to be estimates in a thought experiment, and that our original paper should have clarified how our genes, circumstances, and activities can influence and interact with each other," end quote. Nevertheless, Lyubomirsky has said that her research confirmed that, quote, "happiness can be successfully pursued," unquote. And so instead of solely pursuing changes in your life circumstances, as many people do, it's critical to pursue changes to your intentional thoughts and actions. Research shows that each day we have somewhere between 6,000 and 60,000 thoughts. And according to the National Science Foundation, 80% of those thoughts are negative thoughts, and 95% of your thoughts are repetitive, meaning the same thoughts you had the day before. So you can see why noticing and adjusting your thoughts can have such a significant impact on your average level of happiness. Let's look back at history for a brief moment. Our brains were wired to pay attention most to the threats around us. As cavemen and cavewomen, our brains pretty much had one job: to keep us alive. Thus, it was important to constantly be on the lookout for saber-toothed tigers and other threats. But now, with the comforts of the modern world and with saber-toothed tigers now extinct, and with the evolution of our brains, we have the ability to train our minds to pay more attention to the good that surrounds us and the good that's inside of us. We can also learn to recognize the difference between real threats and situations that aren't really life-threatening. In essence, we can be much more intentional about what we perceive and how we process what's happening in our lives. But for some of you, this will be really new, and you'll literally be carving out new neural pathways in your brain. This can take time, so remember, be diligent with the process and patient with yourself. This mind training can be divided into 3 areas: thoughts about the past, thoughts about the present, and thoughts about the future. We can lean into gratitude, practice forgiveness, be mindful in the moment while savoring the good, and we can cultivate optimism while implementing a growth mindset. In a future module, we will dive into strategies for each of these and provide some exercises to start transforming your thoughts. In addition to your thoughts, your intentional daily actions have a big impact on your level of happiness. Many folks are sleepwalking through life. Research shows that over 40% of human behavior is habitual. So if we can start to mindfully go about our days, intentionally selecting actions and activities that have been proven to boost levels of well-being, then we can start to see some significant changes to the level of our happiness set points. So, what actions should we take and what areas of our life should we focus on? On the macro level, the research on thriving conducted by the Gallup organization indicates that there are 5 big bucket areas of your life that you want to put a significant amount of time and energy into developing. Social, financial, health, community, and career. We'll dive into all of these and how to enhance each of them in a future module. On the micro level, or more of the day-to-day focus of your actions, we can turn to Professor Martin Seligman's book, Flourish, A Visionary New Understanding of Happiness and Well-Being. His research shows that there are 5 building blocks that enable flourishing. These are positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishment. The acronym for these 5 being PERMA. And thus, choosing to spend your time on actions that boost each of these is quite important. In a future module, we'll dive deeper into each of these and how to enhance them in your life. For now, you may want to spend a day tracking how you currently spend your time. Might be an eye-opening experience. At this point in the course, I think it's helpful to pause and take a moment to talk about the importance of taking baby steps and not getting overwhelmed with trying to digest and apply all of this information at once. As we move forward, I encourage you to remember that making small changes can have profound effects on your well-being. German scientist George C. Lichtenberg said, "I cannot say whether things will get better if we change. What I can say is they must change if they are to get better." And American civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase." You don't need to make all kinds of changes at once. In fact, when building new habits, a lot of the literature will recommend building one at a time. You may find it helpful to keep the following mantra in mind. My happiness depends on my habits. We'll be covering a lot of information in this course that we believe you'll find useful and practical. One of the best habits you can begin is carving out time to dive into each of these lessons every week. By sticking with the content of this course and completing the exercises and resources, you'll build confidence that you can start to form other new habits that will contribute towards your thriving. Journalist Charles Duhigg, in his book, The Power of Habit, coined the term the habit loop. He explained how habits are triggered by cues. Cues can be things like a time of day, an activity, a location, a person, an emotional state, etc. The cue causes you to have a craving for a particular outcome. This leads to a response where you engage in behaviors, thoughts, or actions to get the outcome you desire. Once the outcome occurs, you get a sense of reward. This reinforces the cue, making the cue even better at triggering the craving next time. You can use the habit loop to your advantage by being intentional about the process. For example, perhaps you have a favorite chair at home you like to sit in while you sip your morning coffee. You can connect that activity, sitting in your favorite chair in the morning with your fresh cup of coffee, with engaging in one lesson from this course. As you complete the lesson, you can walk with your empty coffee cup to the sink with a feeling of accomplishment for having stuck to your new habit. Wash out your coffee cup, put it on the drying rack. As you look at the clean coffee mug throughout the day, you can already start to look forward to the next morning. You'll be filling it up with fresh coffee, sitting in your favorite chair, and diving into the next lesson in this course. Do this each day and see how the process becomes easier and easier as you use less willpower each day and let the power of your new habit loop move you forward. Over the next week, see if you could start to develop one new habit. Perhaps something like I mentioned, or if you'd rather develop a different habit, feel free. Start small and remember to banish the all or nothing mentality. Instead, use the phrase, "Done is better than perfect," or "Progress over perfection." Remember, having confidence that you have the knowledge and capability to develop new habits will greatly assist you as you start to flourish more and more in your life. Enlisting the help of an accountability partner can make all the difference in the world. Consider asking a friend if you can send them a message each morning after you complete a lesson. Or if possible, ask a friend to enroll in the course too. Each time either of you completes a lesson, you can let the other person know. This accountability is not only to each other, but to yourselves and to your dreams and goals too. In our next module, we'll start to investigate a huge predictor of your well-being, your thoughts and perceptions, and we'll discuss specific strategies you can apply to your life right away. As we've talked about, thriving does indeed involve enhancing aspects of our lives and how we spend our time. And since almost half our actions are habitual, building positive habits in terms of how we use our time is critical. We'll discuss this more in the next module. But the habits of our mind are just as important. One of the fastest ways to change our worlds is by changing the way we see and think about our lives. 13th century Persian poet Rumi said, "Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself." Author Dr. Wayne Dyer said, "When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." And French novelist Marcel Proust said, "The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeing new sights, but in looking with new eyes." And the science says something similar. Human beings have a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out unnecessary information, so what's important to us gets through. It's called the reticular activating system, RAS. There's so much stimuli taking place around us. We need a way to filter out what's not important to us, and at the same time, be sure we are noticing what we have deemed important. For example, in a crowded room, we can block out most of the chatter, but if someone across the room says our name, we notice and look up. Similarly, if we've decided we want to buy a new type of car soon, say a Jeep, we start to see that same type of car everywhere much more frequently. Why is that? It's because we've told our reticular activating system that that type of car is important to us and to be on the lookout for it. Those cars were there previously. We just didn't notice them because it was not important to us. The amazing thing is that we can program our RAS over time. So if we want to start noticing more of the good that surrounds us, we can train our RAS to start noticing it. Another way of saying this is that we all have selective attention. Selective attention is an individual's capacity for noticing and reacting to certain stimuli when multiple occur at the same time. Since it's impossible to focus on all stimuli, Selective attention allows an individual to fully focus on a fraction of those stimuli at the expense of not processing the remainder of the simultaneous stimuli. Okay, try this out right now. Look around the room for 10 to 15 seconds, just observing. Now, do it again, but this time, look for all the things you are thankful for because they make your life a little better. A window that lets in natural light, a comfortable chair, a computer that allows you to find information in a split second, a photograph of someone special who is or was a part of your life. You may have noticed that you saw some things you missed the first time you glanced around the room. As we start to train our minds to pay attention to more of the good that surrounds us, our perception of our life can begin to be enhanced. And the more we consciously look for what's good in our life, the easier it starts to become to notice it. This is powerful. As we change our inner world, our outer world also gets transformed. It does require mindfully paying attention to our thoughts and being intentional about what we want to focus on. We'll talk more about this in the next lesson. We'll close with a quote by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." So, what is your way of thinking? And how can you improve it? We'll dive into this in our next lesson. If we want to thrive, we simply have to start paying attention to our thoughts. Because at any given moment, we can easily be lost ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. Before we continue, answer this simple question. What's on your mind? You may want to pause this in order to take some time to jot down all that you are thinking about right now. So, now that you've done that, look over your list and notice how much of your mental energy is focused on concerns about the future or thoughts about the past. When it comes to the past, it's natural to be thinking about something that has already happened and maybe wishing we could have a do-over. However, many people spend a lot of time agonizing over the past, filled with regret, anger, or both. Unfortunately, this can have a substantially negative effect on your well-being. From sleep issues, heart conditions, digestive problems, memory failure, and more. Fortunately, there are two powerful tools that you can implement that can have massively positive effects on your ability to flourish. The first tool is implementing a gratitude practice. The second is learning how to forgive, both yourself and others. Let's start with the first tool, gratitude. The research shows that gratitude increases your physical health and psychological health, improves your sleep, increases empathy and social connection, enhances mental strength, reduces aggression, and increases self-esteem. Two psychologists, Dr. Robert A. Emmons of the University of California, Davis, and Dr. Michael E. McCullough of the University of Miami, have done much of the research on gratitude. In one study, they asked all participants to write a few sentences each week, focusing on particular topics. One group wrote about things they were grateful for that had occurred during the week. A second group wrote about daily irritations or things that had displeased them. And the third wrote about events that had affected them, with no emphasis on them being positive or negative. After 10 weeks, those who wrote about gratitude were more optimistic and felt better about their lives. Surprisingly, they also exercised more and had fewer visits to physicians than those that focused on sources of aggravation. Another leading researcher in this field, who we have mentioned before, Dr. Martin Seligman, a psychologist at the University of Pennsylvania, tested the impact of various positive psychology interventions on over 400 people. Each was compared with a control assignment of writing about early memories, when their week's assignment was to write and personally deliver a letter of gratitude to someone who had never been properly thanked for his or her kindness. Participants immediately exhibited a huge increase in happiness scores. This impact was greater than that from any other intervention, with benefits lasting for a month. You see, by regularly thinking about what you are grateful for, you'll also be simultaneously training your reticular activating system to pay more attention to the good and other things you are appreciative of. Gratitude also triggers physiological changes. More dopamine and serotonin are released and less cortisol. Thus, you literally feel more pleasure, have better digestion, and your metabolism improves. Also, you have a reduction in blood pressure and a slower heart rate. Lastly, gratitude motivates kindness and self-improvement. As you reflect on what you are grateful for, you become motivated to repay the favors, be kinder to others, and be a better version of yourself. So clearly, implementing a regular gratitude practice can make a huge difference in how much you are flourishing in life. But what are some ways to cultivate gratitude on a regular basis? From an article from Harvard Health Publishing, here are a few ways to cultivate gratitude on a regular basis. Write a thank you note. You can make yourself happier and nurture your relationship with another person by writing a thank you letter or email or DM expressing your enjoyment and appreciation of that person's impact on your life. Send it, or better yet, deliver it and read it in person if possible. Make a habit of sending at least one gratitude letter a month. Once in a while, you can even write one to yourself. Thank someone mentally. If you feel you don't have time to write, it may help you to think about someone who has done something nice for you and mentally thank the individual. Keep a gratitude journal. Make it a habit to write down the gifts you've received each day. You can also be thankful for the difficulties of your day by focusing on the good that came out of those challenges or the lessons you learned. French novelist Colette said, "What a wonderful life I've had. I only wish I'd realized it sooner." And Greek philosopher Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." During the next week, try implementing a gratitude practice each day. Just before going to bed, write down 3 things from the day that you are grateful for. Also, this week, be sure to write one gratitude letter to someone you want to thank for something they did for you. It doesn't matter how long ago the act was, how big or small it was, or even if you've thanked them previously for it. Write a sincere note of appreciation and send it to that individual. In our next video, we'll focus on the importance of forgiveness of yourself and others for past mistakes. And we'll discuss strategies to get better at doing it. The other useful tool for flourishing you can implement when it comes to thinking about your past is the power of forgiveness. Dr. Shauna Shapiro, professor at Santa Clara University and author of the book Rewire Your Mind, says, quote, "Pain in life is inevitable. Suffering, on the other hand, is optional," end quote. One way to avoid suffering is to get busy forgiving. According to the Greater Good magazine, psychologists generally define forgiveness as a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. According to the Mayo Clinic, there are many benefits of forgiveness, such as healthier relationships, improved mental health, less anxiety, less stress, and less hostility, lower blood pressure, fewer symptoms of depression, a stronger immune system, improved heart health, and improved self-esteem. So how do we forgive others and ourselves? There are a variety of suggested practices out there. Do some research and experiment to see what method or methods work best for you. Harvard Health Publishing suggests the REACH method to practice forgiveness. R is for recall. The first step is to recall the wrongdoing in an objective way. The goal is not to think of the person in a negative light, nor to wallow in self-pity, but to come to a clear understanding of the wrong that was done. Visualize the person and situation and all the feelings that come with it. Don't push aside anything, especially if it makes you feel angry or upset. E is for empathize. Next, try to understand the other person's point of view regarding why he or she hurt you, but without minimizing or downplaying the wrong that was done. Sometimes the wrongdoing was not personal, but due to something the other person was dealing with. Dr. Tyler Vanderweel, co-director of the Initiative on Health, Religion, and Spirituality at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, says, people who attack others are sometimes themselves in a state of fear, worry, and hurt. A is for altruistic gift. This step is about addressing your own shortcomings. Recall a time when you treated someone harshly and were forgiven. How did it make you feel? Recognizing this helps you realize that forgiveness is an altruistic gift that you can give to others. C is for commit. Commit yourself to forgive. For instance, write about your forgiveness in a journal or a letter that you don't send, or tell a friend all about how you've forgiven this other person who hurt you in the past. And H is for hold. Finally, hold on to your forgiveness. This step is tough because memories of the event will often recur. When the bad feelings arise, remind yourself that you have forgiven and ultimately you want good for the offender. If needed, revisit your commitment by reading your journal entries or letters, or recalling the shared conversation with a friend. Remember, forgiving yourself is also an important component of well-being. In author and educator Kendra Cherry's article for Very Well Mind, entitled How to Forgive Yourself, she cites research-based practices for forgiving yourself, including these 7 steps. First, understand your emotions. Research has found that identifying and labeling your emotion can help reduce the intensity of your feelings. So first, label the emotions you are feeling about the mistake you made. Second, accept responsibility for what happened. This means letting go of rationalizing or any excuses you've been making for what you did. Simply own it fully. Third, treat yourself with kindness and compassion. Treat yourself like you would a very close friend. Be compassionate while still acknowledging that you made a mistake and want to do better in the future. Fourth, express remorse for your mistakes. Remember, feeling guilty for what you did can be a springboard to making a positive change to your behavior. Express your remorse, remembering that you are a good person who made a mistake. Fifth, make amends and apologize, including apologizing to yourself. If there is something you can do to make up for your mistake, do what you can to do just that. Sixth, look for ways to learn from the experience. To do this, you need to understand why you behaved the way you did and why you feel guilty. What steps can you take to prevent the same behaviors again in the future? Lastly, focus on making better choices in the future. Ruminating on your mistake can be quite damaging. Instead, appreciate yourself each time you make a better decision, recognizing how you've grown from your past errors. This week, choose someone to forgive, or choose to forgive yourself for something you've done in the past. Rewatch this video and read the suggested articles, and take a stab at going through the steps. Truly forgiving someone else or yourself could be monumental in terms of your ability to thrive in your life moving forward. As we've discussed, changing the way you think about the past using gratitude and forgiveness is an important strategy to flourishing more in life. But so is enhancing your thoughts about the future. Specifically, thinking more optimistically about your future. A lot of people spend a significant amount of time worrying about the future. Kate Sweeney, Associate Professor of Psychology at the University of California, Riverside, is the co-author of a paper entitled The Surprising Upside of Worry, published in the journal Social and Personality Psychology Compass. Her research led her to determine that fretting can encourage behaviors that lead to better health, more success, and greater well-being. And thus, we probably evolved to worry for a reason. So essentially, there is a right amount of worry that leads us to take proactive, healthy steps, like wearing a seatbelt due to our concern about a possible car accident, or preparing for a job interview due to our worry of bombing the interview. But we can definitely take worrying too far. Melanie Greenberg, a clinical psychologist in Middle Valley, California, and author of the book The Stress-Proof Brain, says, if worry interferes with your life, if you can't focus and concentrate, if it's spoiling your pleasures in life, if you're procrastinating because you're so worried about how things will go, if you're just keyed up all the time and can't relax, if you're worrying about the same thing over and over and you can't put it aside, that would be unproductive. And check this out. A study out of Cornell University discovered that 85% of what people worried about never happened. Of the 15% of worries that came to fruition, 79% of the time people handled those problems better than they thought they would. So in summary, in order to thrive, decreasing worry and cultivating optimism can be quite helpful. So, to begin, let's define what it means to be optimistic. According to the American Psychological Association, being optimistic means that you possess an overall positive outlook of the world, trusting that good things will happen and that people's desires will be fulfilled. And as author Sean A. Core has said, optimism is knowing that your behavior matters. There are many benefits of optimism. According to the article, How to Be Optimistic When the World Around You Isn't, published on the website verywellmind.com, the following are benefits of choosing to be optimistic. Increased levels of confidence, decreased risk of illness, improved quality of life, longer lifespan, less stress and feeling a greater appreciation for other people, relieved depression symptoms, and possible improved sleep quality. So where does optimism come from? And can you really develop a more optimistic outlook? Studies show that optimism is about 25% inheritable. And then there are other factors that affect our positivity, like socioeconomic status, that are often out of our control. Yet that still leaves a solid amount of wiggle room for us to develop a more optimistic outlook as adults. So if you're someone who tends to think negatively about the future, there's hope. In this lesson, you'll have a chance to see how optimistic you currently are by taking an assessment and answering it as honestly as possible. Be sure not to judge your answers or try to be someone you're not. This is just an opportunity to establish a baseline, and then once you start to apply the lessons on cultivating more optimism, you can go back and take the assessment again to see your progress. So let's look at how optimism is measured. Dr. Elizabeth Scott, an award-winning blogger on stress management, says, optimism is measured by your explanatory style, or how you define events. She says, you're halfway there if you can learn to define positive events in the following 3 ways. First, positive events occurred because of something you did. Second, positive events are a sign of more good things to come. And third, positive events are evidence that good things will happen in other areas of your life. You're all the way there if you can also think of negative events as, first, not your fault, and second, isolated occurrences that have no bearing on future events or other areas of your life. So, to cultivate more optimism, begin by reframing situations and events positively. Research by Dr. Richard Davidson, director of the Laboratory for Affective Neuroscience at the University of Wisconsin, revealed the more we consciously reframe scenarios in a positive light, the more we train our brains to fire up circuits in different regions, eventually altering our response to negative experiences. Another important strategy to becoming more optimistic is thinking carefully about who we spend our time with. Nicholas Christakis, social scientist and physician at Yale University, says, just as some diseases are contagious, we found that many emotions can pulse through social networks. Thus, it's possible that by surrounding yourself with more optimistic individuals, you can enhance your optimism. Additionally, be careful of watching too much of the news. The news is an imbalanced view on the world. Too much can skew your view of society. And finally, as we discussed before, gratitude can have a tremendous impact on your well-being, including enhancing your optimism. One study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that writing in a journal about what you are grateful for was linked to greater feelings of optimism, while another published in the Journal of Happiness Studies found that keeping a journal in which you write down your own acts of kindness can also give your optimism a boost. And if you're convinced you're just the glass is half empty type of person, perhaps the following analogy will help. In a discussion with Oprah on the Super Soul podcast, author and psychologist Sean A. Core described it like this. Seeing the glass half full or half empty becomes irrelevant when you see there is a full pitcher next to you. Life is the pitcher, and it's there for all of us. So in the week ahead, pick an evening or two to go over what went well in your day. Write down what went well and explain why it went well using the optimistic lens, i.e., explain that the positive events occurred because of something you did, and explain how the positive events that took place are evidence that more good things are to come, and good things are likely to happen in other areas of your life too. Try this out. It may feel awkward and unnatural the first 2, 3, or 20 times you do it, but over time, you may find this becomes easier for you, and hopefully the scientific benefits of becoming more optimistic fuel you to stick with this practice. In our next lesson, we'll talk about the importance of being more present more often and specific strategies to do so. It's true that those who are thriving have implemented positive strategies regarding the ways in which they think about the past and the future. However, it is also true that those who are thriving aren't constantly lost in their thoughts. They stay present and in the moment more frequently than most. Harvard researchers Matthew A. Killingsworth and Daniel T. Gilbert discovered that people spend nearly 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing. And this mind wandering typically makes them unhappy. Killingsworth said, "Mind wandering is an excellent predictor of people's happiness. In fact, how often our minds leave the present and where they tend to go is a better predictor of our happiness than the activities in which we are engaged." Wow, that is quite a finding. So it's clearly important to learn and implement strategies to help you stay present more often. At first, you may want to develop a meditation or breath work practice to help quiet the mind. In conjunction with those strategies, two other key tactics for being in the moment more frequently and enjoying it include mindfulness and savoring. Let's start with a method to quiet that constant chatter in your mind: breathwork. Breathwork refers to a variety of breathing techniques and exercises that can be used to improve one's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual health. There are a variety of forms. There are ancient practices such as pranayama and the modern techniques developed by doctors and other practitioners. One such type that I participate in and am a certified facilitator of is called revelation breathwork. It's truly been life-changing. You're welcome to look more into that if it calls to you. According to the article 15 Breathwork Benefits, the science behind breathing practices, there are many benefits to practicing breathwork, including reducing stress and anxiety, increasing energy and boosting immunity, lowering blood pressure and improving circulation, helping to manage pain, strengthening the lungs, improving mood and self-esteem, releasing toxins, improving sleep, helping to manage depression, increasing muscle tone, helping to heal from trauma and managing PTSD, improving digestion, helping to overcome addictions, improving focus, and increasing creativity. Another benefit I have experienced firsthand is that by doing breath work, you can get out of your head and into your wisdom. Essentially, all that overthinking some of us are prone to do can lead us to feel confused and unconfident. But through breath work, decisions can become much simpler, lighter, and clearer. And the science helps explain this, as a recent study in the Journal of Neurophysiology revealed that several brain regions linked to emotion, attention, and body awareness are activated when we pay attention to our breath. And prior research shows that paced breathing exercises can both focus attention and regulate the nervous system. Meditation has many similar positive effects. The Cambridge Dictionary defines meditation as the act of giving your attention to only one thing, either as a religious activity or as a way of becoming calm and relaxed. There are a lot of different types of meditation, so choose a few to try and see which one suits you the best. According to the article, 12 science-based benefits of meditation, some positive outcomes of a regular meditation practice include reduced stress, controlled anxiety, promotion of emotional health, enhanced self-awareness, lengthening of attention span, possible reduction of age-related memory loss, enhanced kindness, help with fighting addictions, improved sleep, help with controlling joint pain, and decreased blood pressure. In conjunction with a breathwork and/or a meditation practice, your ability to stay in the moment can be greatly aided by conducting yourself mindfully. Mindfulness is essentially choosing to pay attention to the present moment in a curious and non-judgmental way. Tuning into your five senses can be quite effective. For example, at this moment, What can you smell? What taste is in your mouth? What do you hear? What shapes and colors do you see? And what do you feel? There are all kinds of tips and tricks to living more mindfully more often. And as you practice doing so, it'll become second nature to you and you'll find yourself present more often. Some examples of specific strategies that I feel help with mindfulness include smelling your food before you take a bite, taking 3 deep breaths at the top of every hour, sitting still for a couple of minutes each morning and noticing the sounds you can hear, and noting the eye color of each person you talk to. Now let's talk about savoring. Savoring is similar to mindfulness, but adds the element of fully feeling, enjoying, and extending our positive experiences. You can actually do this regarding the past and future too. For the past, think back on a pleasant event. Got something in mind? Now, think about the people, smells, sounds, physical sensations, and sights that you experienced. Relive that movie in your mind. For savoring the future, use your imagination to think about a future vacation. Practice savoring by thinking about what you'll do, who will be there, and all the positive emotions you hope to feel. For the present, savoring involves really noticing and focusing on the positive sensations you are experiencing, not rushing past the experience. Feeling grateful for the experience as it's happening. Then think about the positive experience and what caused it. Finally, use the show it, tell it, share it plan. This method is explained in an article by well-being technology expert Chiki Davis, PhD. She says to show it by expressing the positive emotion in your facial expressions and body language. For example, you could smile, laugh, or throw your hands up in the air. These expressions of happiness can help prolong the feelings. Tell it by talking to someone about why you're happy. You might call or text a friend or talk to the people around you about what you're feeling. Others tend to respond well to expressions of positive emotions, which can further generate more positive emotions for you. Share it by sending a text message to your friends or family with the good news or posting kindly on social media. If there's something you are feeling great about, particularly something you think would make others feel great too, share it far and wide with a post. So over the next week, try some of the activities we've discussed and see if your ability to be in the moment has improved, even a little bit. Do the activities in the discussion prompts and share how they went for you. And as Eckhart Tolle, the author of the book The Power of Now, says, the power for creating a better future is contained in the present moment. You create a good future by creating a good present. In the next lesson, we'll move away from what you do with your mind and we'll dive into what you do with your time if you truly want to thrive. As we discussed in the last module, thriving has a lot to do with the neck up. In other words, if you want to start to change your life, first, change your mind. Of course, this takes work, and you're encouraged to join support groups or enlist the help of a trained therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, or other mental health professional. But in addition to what you do with your mind, how you spend your time is a major predictor of your overall well-being. The founder of the Agape Center in Los Angeles, Michael Beckwith, says, quote, many people are suffering from an intention deficit disorder, meaning that many people have no intention. They wake up every single day and they are pulled by circumstances. And the circumstances and the conditions determine how they're going to react moment by moment. That's backwards. That's the tail wagging the dog. When you establish an intention, you're taking your life back. End quote. So it's important to have a general intention to be thriving, but also a desire to intentionally use your time wisely. According to Dr. Martin Seligman, flourishing individuals invest their time in 5 distinct categories. The acronym for these categories is PERMA. They obtain positive emotions, they engage their skills in activities that captivate their attention, they nurture the most important relationships in their lives, they contribute to things that have meaning to them, and they set goals and accomplish them. But at the same time, they use their time to enhance 5 distinct bucket areas of their lives too. According to the Gallup organization, thriving individuals have created well-being in these 5 categories of their lives: social, financial, health, community, and career. In this module, we'll dive deeper into how you can invest your time to thrive. We'll first look at how you can invest your time on a daily basis, i.e. the PERMA categories. Then we'll look at how you can invest your time in filling up the big bucket areas of your life over time. And we'll help you think critically about the components of your life that are unique to you and having the strongest impact on your levels of well-being. As we've stated, thriving individuals are very conscious of how they spend their time. And as we've discussed, according to Dr. Martin Seligman, known as the father of positive psychology, flourishing individuals regularly invest their time in 5 categories known by the acronym PERMA: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. Let's begin with positive emotions. Positive emotions include, but are not limited to, joy, hope, love, pride, and amusement. Think about what fuels your positive emotions. What are you doing when you are enjoying yourself in the here and now? What amuses you? Make a list of these and other leisure activities you enjoy. Perhaps hiking in nature, getting a massage, listening to your favorite music, watching your favorite comedian perform, meditating, or eating your favorite meal. After reviewing your list, schedule some of these activities in the upcoming week. Fully commit to doing them and savoring them. But only focusing on obtaining positive emotions doesn't lead to flourishing, because you'd be missing out on the 4 other key categories. The E in PERMA stands for engagement. When we engage in life, we are fully experiencing an activity and time seems to disappear. It's complete absorption in that activity. Often, engagement occurs when we are using our strengths in an activity at just the right amount of challenge. Or as the late psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called it, we're in a state of flow. Flow is the mental state in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment. Interestingly enough, engagement often occurs at work when we're working on a project that uses a top strength of ours. But it can also occur when we're involved in a hobby. Make a list of your top strengths. Then make a list of ways you capitalize on your top strengths and completely get absorbed in an activity. Perhaps it's when you are using your active listening skills to fully listen to a close friend. Or when you're playing tennis, writing a speech, playing the guitar, analyzing the stars in the sky, preparing a presentation, solving a puzzle, reading a great book, or any other activity that gets you into a flow state. As you did with the positive emotions exercise, look at your list of engagement activities and plan a time to participate in a few of them over the next week. The R in PERMA stands for relationships. Positive relationships with colleagues, friends, family members, mentors, and others is a critical component of well-being. Robert Waldinger is the director of the longest study on happiness. In his TED Talk, What Makes a Good Life? Lessons from the Longest Study of Happiness, he stated, quote, "When we gathered together everything we knew about them at age 50, it wasn't their middle-aged cholesterol levels that predicted how they were going to grow old. It was how satisfied they were in their relationships. The people who were most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80, end quote. Tal Ben-Shahar, co-founder of the Happiness Studies Academy and author of the book Happier, Learn the Secrets to Daily Joy and Lasting Fulfillment, has said, quote, "The number one predictor of happiness is not money or prestige, not success or accolades, but the quantity and quality of time we spend with people we care about and who care about us." Healthy relationships constitute the core of a full and fulfilling life. But it's not only our connection to our friends, family, or colleagues that matters. Cultivating a healthy relationship with ourself is essential if we are to enjoy healthy relationships with others, end quote. Thus, make a list of the most important relationships you currently have in your life. Think of things you can do this week to enhance the quality of those relationships. Things like sharing good news from your own life with someone important to you, checking in with an old friend and simply asking them how they're doing, writing a note of appreciation for someone you care about, joining a social group of people who have a hobby you enjoy. Consider scheduling a few of these activities in your upcoming week. By the way, another potentially helpful exercise for improving the relationships in your life is to read about the 5 love languages. Dr. Gary Chapman is the author of the best-selling series, The 5 Love Languages. The 5 love languages describe 5 ways that people receive and express love in a relationship. These are words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and receiving gifts. Dr. Carol Breeze described it in this helpful way. Love is a bit like a country's currency. One coin or bill has great value in a particular country, less value in the countries that border it, and 0 value in many other countries. In relationships, it's essential to learn the emotional currency of the humans we hold dear, and identifying their love language is part of it. When we know what another person's love language is, we can choose the gestures that will most resonate with our partner, friend, parent, or child. And when we know which actions speak to us and make us feel loved, we can ask other people for exactly what we need. Whether you use the 5 love languages or decide to dive into a different relationship-enhancing resource, the key is to take responsibility for improving the relationships in your life, even if it takes a good amount of your time. And in some cases, this may mean shifting your energy away from some relationships and towards others. The 80-20 principle can be helpful here too. The 80-20 principle, or Pareto's principle, asserts that 80% of outcomes result from 20% of all causes. So as it applies here, 80% of the joy you receive from your relationships comes from 20% of the people in your life. Identifying those people and investing more in those relationships may greatly enhance your well-being. The M in PERMA stands for meaning. Meaning is belonging to and or serving something greater than ourselves. What is meaningful and purposeful to you may be very different than what is meaningful and purposeful to someone else. American author and activist Helen Keller said, quote, Many persons have the wrong idea of what constitutes true happiness. It is not attained through self-gratification, but through fidelity to a worthy purpose. End quote. Getting clear on your values can be a great starting point. People who report having purpose in their lives live longer and report greater life satisfaction. Make a list of how you'd like to see the world improved. Do some research into organizations that are working on those very solutions. Identify a way to contribute to those organizations, possibly with your time or resources. And be the change you wish to see in the world. A quote most often attributed to Gandhi. Additionally, think about the people you care about most and ways you could support their well-being. There is a Buddhist saying, quote, "If you light the lamp for somebody, it will also brighten your path," end quote. If you are uncertain how you could help someone, simply take the time to contact them and ask, "I'm seeking more meaning in my life, and you are someone who is important to me. How can I help you achieve more happiness and fulfillment in your life?" Make a plan this week to invest some time in something meaningful to you. Finally, the A in PERMA stands for accomplishment or achievement. According to Seligman, a sense of accomplishment is a result of working towards and reaching goals, mastering an endeavor, and having self-motivation to finish what you set out to do. This contributes to your well-being because individuals can look at their lives with a sense of pride. It's important to have goals you are currently working towards, as well as some that you have already accomplished that you can look back upon with pride. Make a list of some of your favorite achievements from your life, big and small. Take some time this week to reflect on all that you have already accomplished. Then, think of one goal you'd like to accomplish in the future. Make sure it's a goal that's important to you and that you'd pursue for its own reward. Then, state the goal as a SMART goal. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Finally, list one thing you could do this week that would be a baby step forward towards your goal. Write down specifically what day and time this week you plan to accomplish this baby step. By regularly investing your time in the PERMA categories, you'll start to sense your life is changing. And you can start to pull back and look at your life as a whole. And you can evaluate the life you've created, particularly in 5 key areas. Next, we'll discuss what the research has proven to be are those 5 key big bucket areas of your life that lead to thriving and well-being. As we've stated, thriving individuals are very conscious of how they spend their time. And as we've discussed, according to Dr. Martin Seligman, known as the father of positive psychology, flourishing individuals regularly invest their time in 5 categories known by the acronym PERMA: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. Let's begin with positive emotions. Positive emotions include, but are not limited to, joy, hope, love, pride, and amusement. Think about what fuels your positive emotions. What are you doing when you are enjoying yourself in the here and now? What amuses you? Make a list of these and other leisure activities you enjoy. Perhaps hiking in nature, getting a massage, listening to your favorite music, watching your favorite comedian perform, meditating, or eating your favorite meal. After reviewing your list, schedule some of these activities in the upcoming week. Fully commit to doing them and savoring them. But only focusing on obtaining positive emotions doesn't lead to flourishing, because you'd be missing out on the 4 other key categories. The E in PERMA stands for engagement. When we engage in life, we are fully experiencing an activity and time seems to disappear. It's complete absorption in that activity. Often, engagement occurs when we are using our strengths in an activity at just the right amount of challenge. Or as the late psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi called it, we're in a state of flow. Flow is the mental state in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment. Interestingly enough, engagement often occurs at work when we're working on a project that uses a top strength of ours. But it can also occur when we're involved in a hobby. Make a list of your top strengths. Then make a list of ways you capitalize on your top strengths and completely get absorbed in an activity. Perhaps it's when you are using your active listening skills to fully listen to a close friend. Or when you're playing tennis, writing a speech, playing the guitar, analyzing the stars in the sky, preparing a presentation, solving a puzzle, reading a great book, or any other activity that gets you into a flow state. As you did with the positive emotions exercise, look at your list of engagement activities and plan a time to participate in a few of them over the next week. The R in PERMA stands for relationships. Positive relationships with colleagues, friends, family members, mentors, and others is a critical component of well-being. Robert Waldinger is the director of the longest study on happiness. In his TED Talk, What Makes a Good Life? Lessons from the Longest Study of Happiness, he stated, quote, "When we gathered together everything we knew about them at age 50, it wasn't their middle-age cholesterol levels that predicted how they were going to grow old. It was how satisfied they were in their relationships. The people who were most satisfied in their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. End quote. Tal Ben-Shahar, co-founder of the Happiness Studies Academy and author of the book Happier, Learn the Secrets to Daily Joy and Lasting Fulfillment, has said, quote, "The number one predictor of happiness is not money or prestige, not success or accolades, but the quantity and quality of time we spend with people we care about and who care about us." Healthy relationships constitute the core of a full and fulfilling life. But it's not only our connection to our friends, family, or colleagues that matters. Cultivating a healthy relationship with ourself is essential if we are to enjoy healthy relationships with others. End quote. Thus, make a list of the most important relationships you currently have in your life. Think of things you can do this week to enhance the quality of those relationships. Things like sharing good news from your own life with someone important to you, checking in with an old friend and simply asking them how they're doing, writing a note of appreciation for someone you care about, joining a social group of people who have a hobby you enjoy. Consider scheduling a few of these activities in your upcoming week. By the way, another potentially helpful exercise for improving the relationships in your life is to read about the 5 love languages. Dr. Gary Chapman is the author of the best-selling series, The 5 Love Languages. The 5 love languages describe 5 ways that people receive and express love in a relationship. These are words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and receiving gifts. Dr. Carol Breeze described it in this helpful way. Love is a bit like a country's currency. One coin or bill has great value in a particular country, less value in the countries that border it, and 0 value in many other countries. In relationships, It's essential to learn the emotional currency of the humans we hold dear, and identifying their love language is part of it. When we know what another person's love language is, we can choose the gestures that will most resonate with our partner, friend, parent, or child. And when we know which actions speak to us and make us feel loved, we can ask other people for exactly what we need. Whether you use the 5 love languages or decide to dive into a different relationship-enhancing resource, the key is to take responsibility for improving the relationships in your life, even if it takes a good amount of your time. And in some cases, this may mean shifting your energy away from some relationships and towards others. The 80-20 principle can be helpful here too. The 80-20 principle, or Pareto's principle, asserts that 80% of outcomes result from 20% of all causes. So as it applies here, 80% of the joy you receive from your relationships comes from 20% of the people in your life. Identifying those people and investing more in those relationships may greatly enhance your well-being. The M in PERMA stands for meaning. Meaning is belonging to and or serving something greater than ourselves. What is meaningful and purposeful to you may be very different than what is meaningful and purposeful to someone else. American author and activist Helen Keller said, quote, "Many persons have the wrong idea of what constitutes true happiness. It is not attained through self-gratification, but through fidelity to a worthy purpose." End quote. Getting clear on your values can be a great starting point. People who report having purpose in their lives live longer and report greater life satisfaction. Make a list of how you'd like to see the world improved. Do some research into organizations that are working on those very solutions. Identify a way to contribute to those organizations, possibly with your time or resources. And be the change you wish to see in the world. A quote most often attributed to Gandhi. Additionally, think about the people you care about most and ways you could support their well-being. There is a Buddhist saying, quote, "If you light the lamp for somebody, it will also brighten your path," end quote. If you are uncertain how you could help someone, simply take the time to contact them and ask, "I'm seeking more meaning in my life, and you are someone who is important to me. How can I help you achieve more happiness and fulfillment in your life?" Make a plan this week to invest some time in something meaningful to you. Finally, the A in PERMA stands for accomplishment or achievement. According to Seligman, a sense of accomplishment is a result of working towards and reaching goals, mastering an endeavor, and having self-motivation to finish what you set out to do. This contributes to your well-being because individuals can look at their lives with a sense of pride. It's important to have goals you are currently working towards, as well as some that you have already accomplished that you can look back upon with pride. Make a list of some of your favorite achievements from your life, big and small. Take some time this week to reflect on all that you have already accomplished. Then, think of one goal you'd like to accomplish in the future. Make sure it's a goal that's important to you and that you'd pursue for its own reward. Then, state the goal as a SMART goal. SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Finally, list one thing you could do this week that would be a baby step forward towards your goal. Write down specifically what day and time this week you plan to accomplish this baby step. By regularly investing your time in the PERMA categories, you'll start to sense your life is changing. And you can start to pull back and look at your life as a whole. And you can evaluate the life you've created, particularly in 5 key areas. Next, we'll discuss what the research has proven to be are those 5 key big bucket areas of your life that lead to thriving and well-being. As we previously stated, social scientists tend to think of happiness as being happy in your life and being happy with your life. In the previous few modules, we've been discussing the importance of being intentional with your mind and your time. Your regular habits of thinking and acting have a huge impact on how happy you are in your life. But what leads to feeling fulfilled with the life you've created? According to the book Well-Being, the 5 Essential Elements by Tom Rath and Jim Harter, there are 5 essential areas one needs to focus on fueling in order to be thriving in life, i.e. happy with your life. These are social, financial, physical or health, community, and career. And according to research done by the Gallup organization, 66% of people are doing well in at least one of these areas, but just 7% are thriving in all 5. Let's take a closer look at each category and how it's defined. Social well-being. Having strong relationships and love in your life. Financial well-being. Effectively managing your economic life, not constantly feeling financial stress and using what money you do have wisely in terms of investing in experiences and balancing saving, spending, and sharing. Physical well-being / health. Having good health and enough energy to get things done on a daily basis, but also some might add strong mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Community well-being. The sense of engagement you have with the area where you live. Career well-being. How you occupy your time or simply liking what you do every day. This element can be the most significant because it can have an effect on all the other 4, positive or oftentimes negative. And according to Lags and Leads in Life Satisfaction, a test of the baseline hypothesis, people with high career well-being are more than twice as likely to be thriving in their lives overall. Let's take a closer look at each category and have you start to think about goals for this upcoming year that would enhance each bucket area. Now remember, making big changes to some of these areas can be a pretty significant undertaking requiring lots of effort and time. Thus, keep in mind the value of slow and steady progress, and don't neglect the positive habits of thought and action you've already started to implement earlier in this course. So back to the 5 elements of well-being. First up, social well-being. We've talked a lot about this area already, but it's worth repeating just how impactful your social network is on your life. Think critically about who you're investing in when it comes to your social circle. According to a Harvard study, your odds of being happy increase by 15% if a direct connection in your social network is happy. If a friend of yours becomes obese, it increases your chances of becoming obese by 57%. But if your best friend is very active, it nearly triples your chances of having high levels of physical activity. And a study cited in the book Well-Being looked at more than 15,000 people over the age of 50 and found that among those who were socially active, their memories declined at less than half the rate compared to those who were the least social. Social well-being is about having strong relationships and love in your life. Just like you're encouraged to diversify your financial portfolio, you're also encouraged to diversify your social portfolio. That way, if one relationship in your life is not going well, you have others that can fuel you. As you evaluate your social relationships, how specifically would you like them to improve in the next year? Is there an old friend or family member you've lost touch with that you'd like to re-establish a relationship with? Are you currently in a romantic relationship that you'd like to improve? Maybe by enlisting the support of a marriage and family therapist. Or maybe you're single and you'd like to start dating again this year and need to find a dating app that meets your needs. It's also very important to have mentors in your life, people you can turn to for advice. Perhaps you could benefit from identifying potential mentors and reaching out for an initial conversation. In any event, when it comes to your social bucket, think of your number one goal in this area that you'd like to accomplish and write it down. Next is financial well-being. Financial well-being is really about a few key things. First, having enough money that you aren't constantly worried about it. Or in other words, you are satisfied with your standard of living, you don't worry about money in your everyday life, and you have confidence in your financial future. But once you have enough to feel comfortable and you are consistently paying your bills, how you spend your extra money becomes quite significant. A Harvard study found that spending on oneself does not boost well-being, but spending money on others does. Also, spending on experiences often boosts well-being more than buying things. This can be due to the fact that material purchases fade, but with purchasing experiences, we get the benefit of looking forward to the event itself, and then the possible fond memories of the event. So, evaluate your current financial situation. Make a budget. Track your spending for the next week or two. Financially, where are you now and where do you want to be 1 year from now? Consider making an appointment with a financial advisor and/or think about your spending habits and remember what the research shows leads to enhanced financial well-being. The next element is physical/health well-being. How's your energy? How's your sleep? Have you put a lot of effort into improving the quality of your sleep? How nutritious is your diet? Would joining a gym, obtaining a personal trainer, enrolling in a sleep study, signing up for therapy, starting a meditation practice, or joining a spiritual support group be of some help in this area? Are you familiar with what foods boost your mood and the positive effect exercise has on your mood? Think of your number one goal regarding your health and experiment with methods to move towards achieving this goal. Classic Roman poet Virgil said, quote, "The greatest wealth is health," end quote. An Arabian proverb states, quote, "He who has health has hope, and he who has hope has everything," end quote. Next up is community well-being. How do you feel about where you live? Do you feel safe there? How well do you know it? How connected do you feel? Does it feel like a good fit for your personality and interests? How could you add value to where you live? Have you met someone new in your community recently? Are there community groups you could join? Remember, thriving community well-being has a lot to do with what you do to give back to your community. If you feel like you've done all you can where you currently live to enhance your feelings of community well-being, then perhaps it's time to start researching other communities you could move to. Finally, there's career well-being. This is a big one. We'll spend the rest of the course on it. Remember, people with high career well-being are more than twice as likely to be thriving in their lives overall. Gallup's global research found that people who are engaged in their careers are 20 to 30% more likely to give back to their community. So the question is, are you well aligned when it comes to your career? Do you regularly use your top skills in a role that interests you and matches your top values? Do you like what you do each day? No job is perfect all the time, but there certainly are some roles that are a much better fit for you than others. So, as you start to evaluate these 5 big bucket areas of your life, you're likely to see a few that need the most attention. It takes time and effort to make a significant improvement in any one, let alone more than one. So be patient with yourself and recognize that making small enhancements over time can really add up. When possible, look for ways to enhance multiple categories at once. For example, invite some neighbors to participate in a fundraising walk in your community. And identify perma activities that would also fuel one or more of these big 5 categories. Now, if you're realizing that your career bucket is the most in need of some serious attention, you're in luck. We'll spend the bulk of the remainder of this course focusing on how you can discover what really would be a career match for you, something well aligned to bring you joy and great fulfillment. Throughout this course, we've been discussing the ways in which flourishing individuals tend to perceive and think, and also how they typically spend their time and invest their energy. We've also looked at the 5 elements of well-being and how these bucket areas of life play a key role in thriving. Career is one of the most important areas of life that thriving individuals have paid particularly close attention to. How satisfied you are with your career can have a major impact on many other aspects of your well-being. Why is this? A job that isn't a great fit for you can negatively impact your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. It can hold you back financially and even affect your relationships and sense of community. Not to mention the fact that on average, many people will spend approximately 80,000 hours working prior to retirement. And yet, many people receive little guidance when making their career decisions and now feel stuck in roles that aren't well suited for them. Their careers don't match their interests, skills, values, or personality. According to the Gallup organization, only 13% of employees worldwide are engaged at work. Engaged employees are those who are involved in, enthusiastic about, and committed to their work and workplace. In the US, a little less than 1/3 of full and part-time workers are engaged in their work, and nearly 20% are actively disengaged, meaning they are disruptive and disloyal. So if you find yourself unmotivated and unfulfilled at your job, perhaps it's time to take a step back and analyze whether a significantly better fit exists out there. And we use the word fit with great intention. If you want optimal fulfillment, there are 3 primary components that you want to be a match between you and your job: your interests, your strengths, and your values. And FYI, we'll use the term strengths to be a catch-all for your top skills and natural character strengths. Anyway, remember that each person is unique, and thus what's a good fit for someone else may not be a good fit for you. That's why it's so important to gain clarity regarding your own unique interests, strengths, and values. And you may still be learning about yourself, or some of these may have changed for you. It takes time, focus, and reflection to really get to know yourself. To sum up a critical piece of advice about career, and life for that matter, know thyself, be thyself. If you were asked on a scale of 1 to 100 to rate yourself on the following, what score would you give yourself? How well do you know yourself? 1 being not at all, and 100 being totally and thoroughly. What about this question? On a scale of 1 to 100, how authentically are you living your life? 1 being not at all, and 100 being completely and all of the time. No matter your answers, the first step is to look in the mirror and do some reflection about who you are today. We change as we go through our lives, so regular check-ins with yourself are really, really important. So taking stock of where you are now is the first step, and it's critical. Look inward before looking outward. It's also important to differentiate between needs and wants. For example, you may want all of your values to be met in a career choice, but really only need 2 or 3 of them to be met to be content. You can always look for ways to match the unmet values in other areas of your life. Same with interests and strengths. That's why we have different roles that make up our identity. But again, the point at this stage is to get clear on your interests, strengths, and values. And then you can go out and research all kinds of different career options to see which ones are a good fit for you. And when you find a career that fits you well, you're likely to find yourself in a more positive state of mind more frequently. According to researcher and author Sean Acor's TEDx talk entitled "The Happy Secret to Better Work," the following outcomes occur for people in a positive state. They are better at keeping their jobs. They have superior productivity. They are more resilient, and they have less burnout. In other words, as you are happier in your career, you'll likely be more successful too. Additionally, you're likely to find more meaning in your work when it's well aligned for you, especially when you're using your greatest strengths regularly and getting your top values met. And there's no doubt, people are seeking more meaningful work. According to a Better Up article, 9 out of 10 employees would be willing to accept a pay cut in exchange for a more meaningful job. And with good reason, as finding meaning in your work has a lot of additional positive outcomes for you. In a 2010 review, Brent D. Rosso, PhD, and colleagues noted that finding meaning in one's work has been shown to increase motivation, engagement, empowerment, career development, job satisfaction, individual performance, and personal fulfillment, and to decrease absenteeism and stress. People assign significance to their work in a variety of ways, as Boston College professor Michael G. Pratt and 2 doctoral students describe in a chapter in the 2013 book, Purpose and Meaning in the Workplace. Quote, "Some may derive meaning not from the job itself, but from the fact that it allows them to provide for their families and pursue non-work activities that they enjoy. Others may find meaning in being able to advance themselves and be the best they can be. People with a craftsman's orientation take pride in performing the job well. Those with a service orientation find purpose in the ideology or belief system behind their work. Still others extract meaning from the sense of kinship they experience with coworkers." End quote. Whatever the case for you, finding some meaning in your work is clearly important. And as we stated, it is much more likely to be found when your job is a good fit for you. In the next couple of lessons, we'll discuss in more detail the unique role your interests, strengths, and values play in career fulfillment, as well as your personality too. And we'll also begin doing some self-assessment so you can start getting clearer on your own unique characteristics. As Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So what does it mean to find career alignment, and why is it important? Let's start with why it's important. In a nutshell, it's important because it has a large impact on your overall well-being and the success of your organization. Studies have shown that being engaged in your work leads to better health, more fulfillment, increased confidence and motivation, as well as superior productivity and creativity, to name a few. So how do you find a career that you enjoy and fulfills you? A career well aligned for you matches 3 primary aspects: interests, strengths, and values. Being interested in what you're doing not only makes each day more enjoyable, but it helps you stay motivated during challenging days. Being interested in your work can help you stay attentive and fuel you to keep you learning and growing. When it comes to your strengths, finding a job that capitalizes regularly on your greatest strengths is vital. When your position calls upon your top strengths, you will ultimately be more successful and also much more engaged. According to the Gallup organization, those who get to do what they do best every day are 6 times as likely to be engaged in their jobs and 3 times as likely to report having an excellent quality of life. As we've talked about, engagement occurs when your top strengths or skills are being used at the right amount of challenge. When this occurs, you can find yourself in a state of flow where time almost disappears and you'll be succeeding at your work without feeling like you're extremely taxed. In fact, your work can actually energize you. Career values are personal motives and beliefs that help you identify what's most important in your professional role. They may be things like helping others, work-life balance, variety, security, high earning potential, expressing creativity, and more. What's most important to you may be different from what's most important to somebody else. So block out the noise of what others say is important and get clear on what you feel is most important. When your top values are being met at your job, you are likely to feel fulfilled and loyal to your role. And when the way in which you can do your job is a good match for your authentic personality, you'll likely feel motivated and energized by your role. The way in which you get to do your job can include things like how much time you work alone versus working with others, the way in which you get to make decisions, how predictable your days are at work, and more. Now, even if your job is an excellent match for you, an incompetent or toxic manager can spoil things. Thus, one quick note about the importance of having a competent manager and one whose leadership style matches what works well for you. In a nutshell, it's a huge factor when it comes to your well-being. In fact, according to a study by the Workforce Institute at UKG, which included 3,400 people across 10 countries, 69% of people said their managers had the greatest impact on their mental health, on par with the impact of their partner. And this was more than the impact of their doctor, 51%, or therapist, 41%. You may be in a role well aligned for your interests, strengths, and values, but be dealing with a poor manager. In this case, you may need to have some difficult conversations that help your manager coach you in ways that bring out the best in you. Involving HR or others may be necessary. In other cases, you may need to find another opportunity that is well aligned with you but has a more savvy leader in place. So before moving forward, let's have you do some self-assessment. In the next lesson, we'll offer a few activities and research-based assessments that you can take to get clearer on what you're looking for in a career. Remember, even if you've done some self-assessment previously, it's important to reassess as people can change over time, especially when it comes to one's interests, strengths, and values. As we've stated, before making any career decisions, it's important to step back and take stock of who you are, what interests you, what you're good at, and what matters most to you. When it comes to evaluating your interests, there are a number of assessments you can take. Take a deeper dive into the history and research behind each assessment and determine whether or not you find them to be of value. Some may have a fee associated with taking them, and some are likely to be most optimally utilized by having someone certified in the assessment interpret your results with you. But in addition to taking formal assessments, you can get clearer on your interests in other ways. First, look at how you spend your time and money. Look at who you follow on social media. Think about what subjects you found most interesting when you were in school. If you could take any class for fun or the joy of learning, what class or classes would you take? What subject or subjects do you like talking about most? If you were asked to write an article on any subject, what would you choose and why? If you had a completely free week with no responsibilities, how would you fill all that time? If you could be considered an expert in any subject area, what would you like to be known as an expert in? One of my favorite journaling exercises can be found in the book, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, 7 Steps to Genius Every Day. The author, Michael J. Gelb, recommends the 100 questions exercise. Essentially, the journaling exercise asks you to make a list of any 100 questions you are curious about. Anything that is of interest to you. For some, the list might include things like, why is the sky blue? How do airplanes fly? Who has hit the most triples of all time? What is the largest organic farm on Earth? What's the meaning of life? Whatever comes to your mind, write it down and don't edit yourself. Just write the question down and keep going until you get to 100. After finishing, look for common themes. Also, rank the 10 questions you are most interested in. That list can be a good starting point for your career direction, including possible industries you could work in and possible specific jobs that work on answering questions like those on your top 10 list. Next, take some time to assess your greatest strengths. Again, look at various formal assessments like Clifton Strengths, VIA Strengths Survey, and SkillScan. But also, ask people closest to you what they see as your greatest strengths. Review some of your peak moments in life and evaluate what skills you were using during those times. Think about the classes you've done best in over the course of your life. If you have working experience, look at past performance reviews and look for patterns of the areas you performed best in. Think about what you are most frequently complimented about. Think about your preferred role when working in groups and what strengths you bring to the table. Once again, look for patterns in your strengths and then start to write a mock job description that lists the preferred strengths as all those that you possess. Similar to interests and strengths, values can be assessed through formal assessments too. But also, answer the following question. List what is most important to you in a job. Also, think about a job you liked. Answer the question of why you liked it. Also, think of jobs you didn't like. Answer the question of why you didn't like them. More often than not, it was because your values weren't being met. Think of what you consider to be non-negotiable in terms of aspects a job must contain in order for you to even consider it. When you get clear on your top 5 values, keep this list handy as you start to explore careers. It can serve as a tremendous filter. Lastly, your personality is important too. Assessments can help you get clearer on your personality type and preferences. Ultimately, finding a role you can be yourself in is very important to feeling motivated and energized. The amount of people interaction, detail-oriented versus big picture work, how you make decisions, and how organized or spontaneous you can be at your job all play into your overall satisfaction with your career. One quick note. Ideally, you'll eventually find a career that matches the grand majority of your interests, strengths, values, and personality characteristics. But the reality is, it's difficult to get all of them met in your job. And having a well-rounded life will mean that some of your interests, strengths, and values will be met through other roles you play in life and hobbies you have. That's more than okay. And that's really where life design comes into play. You want to design a life that includes a career that fits you well, but also a life that allows you to play various other roles that match who you are and what you have to offer. So, after doing some extensive self-assessment, you will be ready to start designing your career. The next module will go into design thinking and how you can use this approach to find and obtain a career that is well aligned for you. So you've had a chance to do a fair amount of self-assessment. Don't worry if you still aren't 100% clear on your greatest interests, strengths, and values. As long as you've paused and done some reflection on who you are and what you want, you can begin taking the next steps. As you journey forward, you can always do some additional reflection and clarification regarding your interests, strengths, and values. Knowing thyself really is a lifelong investigation. But for now, you're ready to begin designing your career. And we use that word designing intentionally. So what is design thinking and why does it matter? Design thinking is simply a problem-solving strategy, a very helpful strategy for getting unstuck. It started as people tried to reverse engineer the creative process. It's useful for coming up with innovative solutions to complex problems such as how to discover a great career fit. Design thinking involves certain mindsets and specific action-oriented steps. According to Stanford's Introduction to Design Thinking can help you to create a game-changing solution. Design thinking is a way of thinking, acting, and interacting that opens a new world of problem-solving possibilities by encouraging you to seek out and consider diverse perspectives and by allowing you to hush your inner critic. That's one of the reasons it is so effective and so important. It gets you out of your head and instead gets you in action-oriented, progress-obtaining mode. And as you are moving forward, something sort of magical happens where your intuition and logic work together to find optimal solutions. You see, design thinking does a nice job of finding the sweet spot of problem solving. It's not steeped wholly in intuition and emotion, nor does it rely solely on rationale, science, and analytics. It uses a mixture of both. So what are the design thinking mindsets? And what are the steps in the design thinking process? We'll cover those topics in the next 2 lessons, and both are critical. So before designing your life and career, you need to get into the mindset of a designer. According to Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, the authors of Designing Your Life: How to Live a Well-Lived, Joyful Life, there are 5 mindsets that you need to cultivate in order to most effectively move through the design process. They are curiosity, bias towards action, reframing, mindfulness of the process, and radical collaboration. Let's take a look at each of these one at a time. Curiosity is probably the most fundamental mindset to design thinking. Curiosity is about your willingness to ask questions and probe deeper. Discovering a fulfilling career fit starts with asking the question, how can I find a well-aligned career? I suggest writing that very question down right now. Place that paper somewhere you'll look at frequently. Bias towards action is the second mindset of a designer. In Designing Your Life, Burnett and Evans explain that designers don't think their way forward, designers build their way forward. In other words, designers are eager to try things out in order to get a sense for how well they fit. And here's a specific note for all the perfectionists out there. Designers fail their way forward and aren't afraid of making mistakes, as they know that applying the lessons from their mistakes propels them forward. As a recovering perfectionist myself, it took me a while to fully understand the value of this concept, but it really is the secret sauce to making significant progress. And as some people like to say, an effective strategy to live by is ready, fire, aim. The third mindset of designers is reframing problems. Essentially, a reframe is a perspective shift. It is how designers get unstuck. Many of us suffer from limiting beliefs. Those are false beliefs that prevent us from pursuing our goals and desires. Designers are in the habit of reframing these beliefs into more actionable perspectives. For example, the dysfunctional belief of, I should know where I'm going, can be reframed to be, I don't always know where I'm going, but I can tell if I'm headed in the right direction. Or the dysfunctional belief, work is not supposed to be enjoyable, that's why they call it work, can be reframed, enjoyment is a guide to finding the right work for you. Or the dysfunctional belief, there is one dream job out there somewhere for me, and if I just think hard enough, it will pop into my head and my problems will be solved. Can be reframed as, by exploring and reflecting on what engages and fulfills me, I will have a solid starting point to begin taking action steps forward to finding careers that are well aligned with my interests, strengths, and values. Or the dysfunctional belief, I'm stuck, can be reframed, I'm never stuck. I can always generate a lot of ideas. I think you get the idea. The key is to reframe any dysfunctional beliefs you are currently holding on to into much more empowering perspectives. The fourth mindset of designers is knowing it's a process. Designers know to trust the process, meaning that they take things one step at a time and reevaluate after each step. They don't rush to conclusions, nor do they get stuck holding on to a particular end result they have in mind. This is key. The only things designers are stuck to are the steps in the design process. They know that skipping steps or rushing through any of them isn't being respectful of the process and likely won't move them closer to designing a fulfilling life for themselves. Thus, it's important for you to commit to the process and not rush through it. Be persistent and focused, but not sloppy. Or as legendary UCLA basketball coach John Wooden said, be quick, but don't hurry. The fifth mindset designers embrace is radical collaboration. In essence, they fully believe in asking for help. Other people have the unique perspective to see your own blind spots, and also more experienced individuals can help you avoid mistakes they might have made. Designers understand that they can go further when they collaborate and that the best designs come from diverse teams working together. Identifying potential mentors can be very important. In fact, from Gina DeRosier's article on LinkedIn, the following benefits of having a mentor are noted. Career advancement, including a higher rate of promotion. Personal and professional development, including increased job-related well-being, self-esteem and confidence, and better work-life balance. And developed networking skills. As English physicist Isaac Newton said, "If I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants." And as American television host, actress, producer, and philanthropist Oprah Winfrey once said, "No matter how diligent or persistent you have been, there is not one of us who made this journey towards success by ourselves." So make sure you have a collaborative mindset as you approach designing your career, and work on your ability to ask others for help. Start small and work your way up. Give people the opportunity to feel useful and connected to you. Asking for help is a very important life skill. Now that we've covered the mindsets of a designer, and you're starting to adopt those mindsets, we're ready to dive into the design process. In the next lesson, we'll take a close look at the key steps of the design process and how you can start making some real progress with your career. So now that you know the design thinking mindsets, let's turn our attention to the steps in the design process. Diligently following these steps will allow you to make significant progress towards discovering and obtaining a career that fits you well. There are 6 steps in the design thinking process: accept, empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Step 1 is accept. Accept means to fully accept where you are. Instead of spending a lot of time feeling regret or anger about not finding a well-aligned career yet, designers accept that this is where they are, and they dive in from that exact point. Step 2 is empathize. Designers empathize with the people affected by the problem. In this case, you primarily empathize with, well, you. It's not fun to be in a job that doesn't align well with your interests, values, strengths, or personality. Designers acknowledge the feelings of frustration, being unfulfilled, and feeling confused. Knowing that you don't want to pivot to another career that isn't well aligned, you can channel that energy into fuel to move you forward. Step 3 is defining the challenge. Your goal isn't simply to find a new job. Your goal is to find a new job that is well aligned with your specific interests, strengths, and values. Thus, that's why we did so much self-assessment earlier in the course. Reflecting on what you specifically liked and didn't like about past roles and engaging in further self-assessment is key so that you can clearly define the interests, strengths, and values that you want to be met in your next position. Step 4 is to ideate. This is where you brainstorm all possible career options that might fit some aspect of who you are. There are no bad ideas at this point. Let your imagination run wild, as long as the positions in some way match your interests, strengths, and/or values. But of course, there may be options you have never heard about. That's why the next step is critical. Step 5 is to prototype. Try out your ideas and expand them by conducting informational interviews, volunteering, job shadowing, taking courses, internships, and all kinds of other ways of dipping your toes into positions to get a much clearer sense of what they are all about. Of all these methods for prototyping, informational interviews are by far my favorite strategy. Informational interviews are where you simply ask people in roles you are curious about if you can hear more about their jobs and how they landed those roles. You can ask questions like, what's a typical week like for you? What skills are most important to thriving in your role? What were the key steps you took to eventually land the role you have now? If you were in my shoes, what initial steps might you take to start moving towards a role like yours? As you conduct informational interviews, you'll start to see how people really enjoy having conversations about what they do and how they got there. Just remember, at this stage you really are just seeking information. You are not asking them to help you get a job. Though that type of assistance may organically occur. So, after conducting informational interviews and other prototyping strategies, you can then move to the sixth step in the process. Step 6 is to test or analyze what you know about a role with what you know about yourself, and then you can determine if much of that role is well aligned with you or not. If it is, you can take another step forward, a deeper dive into learning about and preparing for the position. After doing that, you can again reevaluate if this role seems to be a great fit for you. If through prototyping and testing, you find a career is not very well aligned with you, you can take a step back and reevaluate what might be missing or misaligned. Then, brainstorm some other possible solutions and prototype some more. Eventually, you'll find a career well suited for you. The process is fairly cyclical throughout life. Many times, you'll find yourself stopping to accept where you are, empathizing with how you're currently feeling in your role, defining who you are and what you're looking for in your next role, generating ideas of what that might be, trying out different opportunities through conversation and experimentation, and then assessing how well a fit those opportunities might be for you. And then making a decision to either make a change of some kind and take a step in a different direction, or deciding to stay where you are and trying to adjust the role you're already in. Of course, when you do gain some clarity in what might be a better aligned career opportunity, you'll want to enthusiastically and strategically pursue it. There are many other courses you can take to learn strategies for successfully navigating the job hunt. Things like finding open opportunities, the hidden job market, presenting yourself well on a resume, writing strong cover letters, interviewing well as creating a professional online presence. We won't cover all those topics in this course, but in the next module, we will focus on one that I believe affects all aspects of a job search: how to effectively tell your story. Remember, everyone has a story to tell, and how you tell that story to others, but also to yourself, can have a significant effect on not only how successfully you're able to move towards your goals, but also on your overall well-being. Telling your story persuasively and concisely can be extremely helpful when pursuing a variety of new opportunities, whether you're exploring a new career, hobby, or even a new relationship. The way in which you tell your story can greatly influence the outcome of your pursuits. But even more importantly, the way in which you tell yourself stories about your life can have a huge impact on your overall well-being. According to the American Psychological Association, narrative psychology is a field in psychology that investigates the value of stories and storytelling in giving meaning to individuals' experiences, shaping our memory of past events, our understanding of the present, and our projections of future events, and in defining ourselves and our lives. It's clearly a very powerful field, and there's been a lot of research in this field. And a lot of this research points to the fact that our stories shape our thoughts and memories and even change how we live our lives. Jonathan Adler, PhD, is a psychology professor at the Franklin W. Olin College of Engineering. He says, "You tell the story first, and then you live your way into it." Emily Esfahani-Smith, author of the book The Power of Meaning, says, "Our identities and experiences are constantly shifting, and storytelling is how we make sense of it. By taking the disparate pieces of our lives and placing them together in a narrative, we create a unified whole that allows us to understand our lives as coherent. And coherence, psychologists say, is a key source of meaning." And Northwestern University psychologist Dan McAdams says that people who believe their lives are meaningful tend to tell stories defined by growth, communion, and agency. And so it starts to become clear that we need to take a very close look at the stories we are telling ourselves and others about who we are and the events of our lives. In an article in Very Well Mind, author and mental health expert Barbara Field sums up a major point by saying, "Recent research on narrative identity shows that when it comes to life stories, those who find redemptive meanings in their past challenges and adversity, and who tell their stories with ideas that include agency, exploration, or more open-mindedness, enjoy higher levels of mental health, well-being, and maturity." In the next lesson, we'll start to unpack how you can tell your story in a redemptive and compelling fashion that not only engages and persuades the listener, but also enhances your well-being and self-esteem. So what's your story? When someone asks that, or you ponder that question in your mind, how do you answer it? In the previous lesson, we talked about the importance of essentially being the hero or heroine of your own story, focusing on the growth and redemption you've experienced through your challenges and circumstances. But how do you do this, and how can you effectively organize your story? As a way to help do both, I believe it can be useful to think about a triangle and being sure to hit on the following 3 points of your background: personal, educational, and professional. As you think about your personal background, start to brainstorm things like where you're from, the family size and dynamics you grew up in, the types of careers you were exposed to early on, the challenges you faced, and the hobbies and interests you had as a kid. Then begin to create a chart with 2 columns. Column 1 is labeled facts, and column 2 is labeled outcomes. For example, perhaps a fact is that you grew up as the oldest child in a big family. The outcome of that experience may have been that you became a natural-born leader and very adept at dealing with pressure since you always went through everything first. Maybe another fact is that your parents were immigrants who worked a lot. An outcome of that may have been that you became a hard worker yourself and quite independent at an early age. And maybe another fact is that your passions as a kid were playing sports and playing musical instruments. An outcome of this fact might have been that those passions ignited a love for competition and expression. You get the idea. Continue to brainstorm additional aspects of your childhood. Don't edit yourself at this point. And remember, when you are stating the outcomes, try to find the most positive outcome, because like we stated in our last lesson, recent research shows that when it comes to life stories, those who find redemptive meanings in their past challenges enjoy higher levels of mental health and well-being. So continue to brainstorm all kinds of facts and outcomes from your personal background. Later on, there will be time for you to decide which parts of your personal background you want to leave in or emphasize in your story, and which aspects you feel weren't that significant. Once you have sufficiently populated the 2 columns from your personal background, you can begin to pick a few of the most relevant facts and outcomes as you try and craft a succinct paragraph that starts to tell the personal aspect of your story. Here is an example. I'm a natural-born leader who relies on instinct and tenacity to serve others the best I can. As the oldest of 5 kids and the daughter of immigrants, I had to become an independent trailblazer early on and found my niche competing in sports and expressing myself through music. Now let's turn our attention to your educational background. Start to think about all the educational institutions you attended, what you studied, what you enjoyed, what extracurricular activities you participated in while you were a student, and how you grew during that time. Then, create another 2-column chart, facts and outcomes. Let's look at an example. Perhaps you attended a large public university with about 30,000 undergraduate students. Maybe an outcome of that was that you developed even more resilience getting through and making an impact at such a large institution. Perhaps you studied history, and an outcome of that was developing a strong conviction that we must learn from the past to create a better tomorrow. Maybe you became an officer in the History Society, and the outcome of that experience was a passion for leadership. Continue to populate the 2 columns of the chart without editing yourself. Then, choose a few of the most relevant details and begin to try and craft a paragraph that starts to tell the educational aspect of your story. Here's an example. In college, I continued to develop my strong work ethic by studying history at a large public university with approximately 30,000 undergraduate students. Sports and music transitioned to hobbies once I found my true passion for leadership as the president of the History Society. After that experience, I wanted to become an elite manager by studying transformative leaders of the past and by gaining real-world experience. Lastly, start to brainstorm aspects of your professional background as well as your professional goals and aspirations. Think about the past jobs, volunteer experiences, internships, committee work, and other roles you've played. Create another 2-column chart without editing yourself. Column 1 is for facts, column 2 is for outcomes. As an example, perhaps while in college you obtained a leadership development internship with a Fortune 500 company. Maybe the outcome was that you realized that you are drawn much more to working in the nonprofit world. Perhaps your first job out of college was a management trainee for 2 years at a local nonprofit. Maybe the outcome of that experience was that you realized you greatly desire to expand your skills and deepen your expertise by pursuing an MBA one day. Continue populating the chart without editing yourself. Then attempt to create a paragraph that captures a few highlights of your professional background. Also, you can conclude the paragraph by adding professional goals if you started to have some ideas about your next direction. Here's an example. Towards the end of my time in college, I gained practical experience through a leadership development internship with a Fortune 500 company. Although the role was fascinating, I found the environment was not a fit for my values. Thus, after graduation, I landed a management trainee position with a local nonprofit. I've been there 2 years and I'm learning a lot, but have started to feel ill-equipped to thrive in this role. I'm now looking into MBA programs that will expand my skill set as a leader. Now, put it all together in a longer paragraph. Here's an example. I'm a natural-born leader who relies on instinct and tenacity to serve others the best I can. As the oldest of 5 kids and the daughter of immigrants, I had to become an independent trailblazer early on and found my niche competing in sports and expressing myself through music. In college, I continued to develop my strong work ethic by studying history at a large public university with approximately 30,000 undergraduate students. Sports and music faded to hobbies once I found my true passion for leadership as the president of the History Society. After that experience, I wanted to become an elite manager by studying transformative leaders of the past and gaining real-world experience. Towards the end of my time in college, I gained real-world experience through a leadership development internship with a Fortune 500 company. Although the role was fascinating, I found the environment was not a fit for my values. Thus, after graduation, I landed a management trainee position with a local nonprofit. I've been there 2 years and I'm learning a lot, but have started to feel ill-equipped to thrive in this role. I'm now looking into MBA programs that will expand my skill set as a leader. Keep working on your story. Write it all out. Edit it several times, and then start to practice saying it out loud until it sounds natural and feels authentic. Lastly, you might have noticed that our example includes a slightly catchy one-liner at the very beginning to hook the listener in, i.e., I'm a natural-born leader who relies on instinct and tenacity to serve others the best I can. You can add a memorable one-liner to your story as well. It's basically a very brief description of your character and skill set. Look at the following examples and see if you start to get any ideas of how you might craft a one-liner that introduces your story. I'm a communicator focused on making the complex understandable. I'm a problem solver whose happy place is a sterile lab and a powerful microscope. I'm a human sponge looking to absorb as much knowledge about nutrition and biology as possible. I'm a classic people person, conducting human connections like a symphony. I'm a computer scientist who could easily write code for 10 hours straight. I'm a service-oriented human, and I believe my empathy is my superpower. I'm a competitive individual, and whatever I'm doing in life, if there's not a scoreboard, I don't want to play. Don't worry if you don't come up with anything right away. It's not a necessity to have this lead your story. However, over time, something might come to you, and if it does, you can start adding it to the beginning of your story as a way to hook the listener in right off the bat. By the way, you can also ask those that know you best how they might describe you in just one sentence. Their responses will likely generate some ideas for you. In the next lesson, we'll discuss an effective method to create a shorter version of your story that you can use when the situation calls for it. So in the last lesson, we talked about something I call the triangle approach for telling your story. There are certain situations where you'll have a person's undivided attention, and you can take a couple minutes to tell your story, hitting all aspects of the triangle: personal, educational, and professional. But in a world of short attention spans, which according to the research from the National Center for Biotechnology Information, the average attention span is about 8.25 seconds, we can find ourselves in situations where the circumstances call for a very short and direct way of telling your story. Picture a career fair or networking event. In situations like these, it can be helpful to have a tight and compelling paragraph rehearsed that I call your TMAG: title, mission, accomplishment, and goals. Your title may be your current job title or student if you're in school, or retired if you're in the process of shifting to your encore career. Or if you're between jobs, perhaps your title could be something like currently exploring my next career chapter. Your mission is your goal or the why behind your career pursuits. It may be something specific like, I'm looking to make clean energy readily accessible to all. Or, I'm hoping to launch my own nonprofit focused on first-gen students. Or, I'm excited to one day work as a broadcaster in the extreme sports industry. Or it could be less specific and more along the lines of simply desiring to make optimal use of your top strengths. For example, I'm focused on fully using my attention to detail and critical thinking skills daily. Or maybe you're really not clear at all on your career mission. In this case, you can simply say that your mission is to find an excellent career fit for my interests, skills, and values. The A in TMAG stands for accomplishment. This is an opportunity to quickly highlight a relevant accomplishment or two from your past. For example, in college, I served in student government. Or, I recently completed my bachelor's degree in sociology. Or if you have past work experience, I have over 10 years of experience working in the hospitality industry. Or, I recently started a blog showcasing the latest technology advances for skateboards. Finally, the G stands for your goals. For example, now I'm looking to learn more about roles in state government. Or, now I'm looking to get my start in the finance industry. Or, now I'm looking to pivot to a career in the healthcare industry. Or, now I'm looking to talk to people working in the skateboarding industry to get a better understanding of the roles where my strengths could add the most value. Or, now I'm looking to do some job shadowing in a variety of industries to get a better sense of what roles exist out there. This TMAG intro can also be paired with an ask when you find yourself using it at a career fair or when introducing yourself to someone that you may be asking to do an informational interview with. For example, can you please tell me more about what you are looking for in an ideal candidate? Or, may I take you to coffee sometime to learn about your career experience? Or even if you're just at a backyard barbecue talking to someone new, you can use your TMAG intro and add the ask of something like, do you happen to know anyone working in this industry? Let's take a look at 3 examples of the TMAG with the added ask. Hi, my name is blank, and I'm currently an administrative assistant for the XYZ organization. That's your title. My goal is to one day start my own nonprofit empowering first-gen students to make changes that improve lives for multiple generations to come. That's your mission. I have volunteered over 500 hours with our local Big Brothers Big Sisters chapter. That's your accomplishment. And now I'm looking to learn more about roles in state government that focus on marginalized communities. That's your goal. May I take you to coffee sometime to hear about your career experience? That's your ask. Or here's another example. Hi, my name is blank, and I just graduated with an English degree. That's your title. My goal is to learn as much as I can and grow as much as I can these first few years after graduation. That's your mission. I studied abroad in Spain last year and also served as an athletic tutor for 2 years while in college. That's your accomplishment. Now I'm looking to learn more about roles teaching English abroad. That's your goal. Can you please tell me more about what you're looking for in ideal candidates for your current openings? That's your ask. Or here's one last example. Hi, my name is blank, and I'm a former marketing associate now exploring better aligned career opportunities. That's your title. My goal is to capitalize on what I've learned in my past experience, but make better use of my creative skills. That's your mission. I recently completed an advanced video editing course. That's your accomplishment. Now I'm looking to obtain freelance editing projects to enhance my portfolio. That's your goal. Do you happen to know anyone that might be hiring freelance editors? That's your ask. Whenever you're working on telling your story, any version of it, it's critical to practice it over and over again out loud until you feel that it's both feeling very natural and also very authentic. As you start to tell your own story more and more, you'll likely start to feel more confident telling your story in all kinds of different situations. You might even start looking forward to that opportunity. And a funny thing can happen as you start to tell your story more and more frequently. Yes, you can find yourself feeling more confident, but also more connected to other people. Because as people listen to your story, they often hear parts of the story they can relate to, and thus naturally feel and point out a connection. And we've talked a lot in this course about the research-based physical, mental, and emotional well-being benefits of social connection. So I highly encourage you to make time for working on how you tell your story and start telling it. In the next module, we'll summarize what we've learned in this course, and we'll also start having you set some tangible goals as you continue your practice of thriving. As we wrap up this course, it's important to reflect back on what you've learned. We've covered quite a bit, so I encourage you to go back through the course and also review the notes frequently. Do some of the exercises again and again, and teach what you've learned in this course to others. By doing so, you'll get to receive the benefits of something called the protege effect. The protege effect is a psychological phenomenon where teaching, pretending to teach, or preparing to teach information to others helps you learn the information. So as a reminder, I believe a lot of the research on well-being can be summarized like this. Flourishing individuals are not sleepwalking through life. They are intentionally living in HD. H in HD stands for what they have in terms of having the 5 big bucket areas of their life being filled up: social, financial, health, community, and career. The D in HD stands for what flourishing individuals regularly do with their time and their minds. They do invest in experiences that bring them positive emotions. They do enter into a state of engagement with activities in life. They do nurture their most important relationships. They do find meaning in their lives. And they do set, pursue, and accomplish goals. They also do pay attention to their thoughts about the past and future, and they do mindfully live in and savor the present. So again, whenever you want to enhance your life and feel more fulfilled, begin by checking in on how you're doing with the following 3 major principles from this course. First, reflect on the 5 elements of well-being as defined by the Gallup organization and the book Well-Being: social, financial, health, community, and career. See if you've neglected any of them and make some long-term goals to enhance the area or 2 most troubling you. Second, reflect on how you spend your time regularly. Make a list of the activities you do weekly that fill up each of the PERMA building blocks, and make sure you aren't neglecting any of them. Again, PERMA stands for positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. Make specific plans listing the day and time that you will use some of your time each week to enhance some of the PERMA categories in your life. Third, Pay attention to your daily thoughts. Note how often you find yourself ruminating about the past or worrying about the future. If you haven't already, start a gratitude practice and implement strategies to cultivate more optimism. Also, develop your skills related to being present more often. Consider a meditation or mindfulness practice. It may sound like a lot, but you don't need to do everything at once. In fact, I'd recommend starting small with some simple daily practices. As Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, once said, "Patience, persistence, and perspiration make an unbeatable combination for success." Once you start to establish a short daily well-being practice, you can start to expand in a variety of ways. For example, you can then outline weekly goals and craft one larger primary goal for each upcoming month. We'll discuss strategies for these ideas and more in the next 2 lessons. Throughout this course, you've been learning about various strategies to thrive more in life. Likely, you've identified areas where you want to make some sort of change. And let's face it, we all want to make some sort of improvement in our lives. But we also find ourselves short on time and attending to pressing needs and challenges. If you really want to apply the knowledge from this course and truly enhance your life, I believe the #1 key is carving out time to make these valuable improvements to your life even when they don't appear to be urgent. In the book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the author, Stephen Covey, makes a point that highly effective people often spend time doing things that are important but not urgent. In the book, The Miracle Morning, the not-so-obvious secret guaranteed to transform your life before 8 a.m., the author, Hal Elrod, explains the transformative power of using the first part of your morning for your own well-being and self-development. You see, after Elrod encountered a near-death experience, he found himself searching for more meaning. Thus, he studied all kinds of successful and thriving individuals. Through his research, he found that most all thriving people have a morning ritual where they do many of these important but not pressing items. He called these lifesavers, since he found most flourishing people were regularly engaged in any number of these 6 activities noted by the acronym SAVERS. S for silence or meditation, A for affirmations, V for visualization, E for exercise, R for reading, and S for scribing, aka journaling. Many, if not all of these, fit into the science of well-being categories we've already discussed in this course. So in order to make sure your days don't get away from you without time for your well-being enhancing habits, it's an effective strategy to use the very first part of your morning, whether 5 minutes or 2 hours, to invest in the categories that would help you flourish. There's an anonymous quote, "You always have time for the things you put first." Thus, starting a morning ritual for yourself can allow you to always have time for making the changes you want to see in your life. In most cases, it automatically eliminates the excuse that you don't have time for your own well-being. Many of the suggested activities we've discussed in this course could be conducted during the first part of your morning. Start small, with 5 or 10 minutes each day. You can gradually increase that time. By completing something important to your well-being during the very first part of your day, you'll be setting a positive tone for the rest of your day. Experiment with starting your morning by writing in a gratitude journal, doing a short meditation, and going for a quick walk, rather than scrolling through social media, checking email, and eating a few donuts. Likely you'll see a shift in how you feel about yourself and how the rest of your day unfolds. In fact, a 2011 study from the University of Pennsylvania found those who started out each day happy or calm usually stayed that way throughout the day, while those who started the day in a bad mood struggled to climb out of it and often felt worse by the end of the day. So intentionally map out how you will start each day and stick to your morning routine. Do something the night before that helps set you up for success. For example, put your running shoes out next to your bed, or put your journal and favorite pen next to the coffee maker. In our next lesson, which is also our last, we'll brainstorm goals for the next year of your life. And we'll talk about the importance of setting SMART goals. As motivational speaker Zig Ziglar once said, a goal properly set is halfway reached. As we close this course, we want to invite you to make a list of your goals for the next year of your life. We recommend one goal for each month. If you sustain even most of the goals you set each month, just imagine what a transformative year ahead you could have. Essentially, making one goal each month is a way to create a theme for your month. It focuses your energy and intention and can help you not get too overwhelmed by trying to accomplish too many goals at once. The goals don't have to be big. Simple, small, consistent changes can add up quickly. But I highly recommend you do use the SMART goal technique, making each goal specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. In other words, a very clear goal that is easy to assess whether it has been accomplished or not, that is challenging but not impossible, that matters to you, and has an obvious deadline. To help organize your year ahead, we've created 12 categories with some simple goals in each category. You can change the order of the categories if you prefer. You'll notice the 12 categories have all been discussed in this course already as science-backed strategies for improving your well-being. You really can have an incredible year ahead. Even doing just one goal in each category every month. Have fun with it. Choose the goals that excite you the most. Write them down somewhere you will see them often. Share your goals with others. Find an accountability partner who you can check in with at the end of each month. Make adjustments as you go, and don't give up. Let's take a look at the categories for each of the next 12 months and some sample goals. Month 1. Improving my thoughts about the past, gratitude and/or forgiveness. Sample goals. Every morning this month, I will start my day by writing down 3 to 5 things I'm grateful for. Each Sunday this month, I will choose someone to write a letter of gratitude to, and I will write it and send it. On the first of the month, I will write a note forgiving myself for an error in judgment from my past. I will reread that note every Monday morning at 8 a.m. Month 2, being more present, mindfulness, meditation, or breath work. Sample goals. Every day at 4 p.m., I will conduct a mindful eating practice as I eat a piece of fruit or some vegetables. I will listen to and participate in a 5-minute guided meditation every weekday at 7 a.m. I will research, sign up for, and take at least one breathwork class this month. Month 3, improving my thoughts about the future, optimism. Sample goals. Each Monday morning at 6 a.m., I will write out what I believe could be the best case scenarios for the events and experiences I have coming up the following week. Each night, right before I go to bed, I will think about 3 things about tomorrow that I am looking forward to. Each Friday, I will review a positive event from my week. I will write about it in a journal using an optimistic explanatory style. You can use the exact language from this example. This week, something good that happened was ... For example, my supervisor praised my work during a team meeting. This event happened because of my abilities. This implies that more positive things can happen in my life. And this incident proves that more success awaits in the future. Month 4, more positive emotions. Sample goals. On the first day of the month, I will make a master list of activities that bring me joy, and I'll schedule at least one of those activities for each week of this month. I will book a massage for some time this month. I will rewatch one of my favorite movies every Saturday of this month. I will make a playlist of my all-time favorite songs and listen to it whenever I am doing the dishes this month. Month 5, more engagement. Sample goals. I will evaluate my top strengths and identify and schedule 4 activities that I can do this month that use my strengths. I will identify the part of the day that I typically feel most productive. Once per week this month, during my most productive time of the day, I will turn off my phone for 90 minutes and dive deep into the project I'm most interested in that I'm currently working on. I will make a list of my favorite activities that fuel me, i.e., I feel energized and/or good about myself after doing them, and I will schedule at least one of these per week for a month. Month 6, more meaning. Sample goals. I will make a list of causes that matter most to me, and I will commit to sharing and discussing that list with at least one other person this month. At least one day this month, I will volunteer a minimum of 1 hour of my time for an organization I believe in. At least once this month, I will donate some money to a cause I care about. I will take 2 hours one afternoon this month to go around my community looking for ways to help, such as picking up trash, helping elderly folks cross the street, holding the door open for people at a coffee shop, donating old clothing, etc. Every Thursday evening this month, I will call a family member or friend and ask them how they're doing and if there is anything at all I can do for them. Month 7, more accomplishments. Sample goals. This month, I will make a bucket list of all the things I still want to do in this lifetime, and I will share and discuss that list with at least one other person. Each Sunday, I will set a SMART goal that I'd like to accomplish by the following Sunday. I will then make 3 mini SMART goals that will help me move forward with accomplishing the original goal. I will make a list of all the accomplishments from my life that I'm proud of. I will review that list every Wednesday this month. This month, I will finish reading one book I've always wanted to read or one that was suggested to me recently. Month 8, improve my social well-being. Sample goals. This month, I will make a list of all of my current relationships, and I will evaluate and make note of the 20% that seem to be bringing me the most joy and fulfillment. I will reach out to at least a couple people on that list, letting them know that I appreciate them. This month, I will schedule a lunch with a family member or friend I've been meaning to catch up with. Every Tuesday this month, I will call a family member or friend and ask, "What's on your mind?" This month, I will approach a neighbor or colleague I don't know that well and engage in a conversation until I've identified at least 5 things we have in common. Month 9, improve my financial well-being. Sample goals. This month, I will schedule a meeting with a financial advisor to review my current financial situation and goals. This month, I will track my spending and I will create a monthly budget. This month, I will think of an experience I want to have by the end of the month. For example, I want to rent an e-bike and go on a guided e-bike tour of my city. Then, I will calculate how much money I need to save each week in order to be able to afford that experience by the date I plan to do it. I will save up and have the experience by the end of the month. Month 10, improve my health, mental, emotional, physical, and/or spiritual. Sample goals. This month, I will research a therapist that is right for me, and I will schedule my first meeting by the end of the month. This month, I will join a yoga studio, Pilates studio, gym, or the like, and commit to attending at least 1 fitness class per week for a month. This month, I will take 1 seminar on nutritious eating. Once per week, I will take at least a 30-minute walk in nature. Month 11, improve my community well-being. Sample goals. This month, I will make a list of everything I appreciate about where I live, and I will research the history of my community. This month, I will make a list of places in my community I want to visit, and I will commit to visiting 1 per week. This month, I will volunteer for a community organization and/or attend at least 1 community meeting. This month, I will bake cookies and bring them to meet a neighbor I haven't yet met. Every Saturday morning this month, I will pick up trash at a local park for at least 30 minutes. Month 12, improve my career well-being. Sample goals. This month, I will evaluate my top interests, strengths, values, and personality characteristics, and I will write them down in one place. This month, I will conduct at least 2 informational interviews. This month, I will attend at least 1 career fair. Each Thursday this month, I will spend 1 hour updating my resume. This month, I will watch a tutorial on how to create a strong LinkedIn profile, and then I will create a LinkedIn profile. This month, I will read the book Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. It's really up to you how you go about this year ahead, but I recommend on the first day of the month each month, plan out your exact goals for that month. Remember to be specific about where, when, and how you will complete your goal. At the end of each month, write out a did it list, sort of like the opposite of a to-do list. Keep all those did it lists somewhere you can see regularly. They'll keep you motivated. We wish you well on your journey. If you're feeling stuck, come back to the lessons in this course. Re-engage with them and make micro changes to your life. Enlist the support of peers and professionals, and keep working on your habits of well-being. Remember, thriving in life is a skill and a practice. Make progress, not perfection, your goal. And if you find yourself not prioritizing your own well-being, remember what Scottish novelist Robert Louis Stevenson once said: "There is no duty we so much underrate as the duty of being happy. By being happy, we sow anonymous benefits upon the world." thank you for working towards fulfilling your duty. And thanks for taking this course. If you found it valuable, be sure to recommend it to someone you care about or someone you feel could benefit from it. All the best to you. Be well.